Oh, get delayed. The typical projects get delayed. The newest revised plans that will probably be down there in a couple weeks. This might be the last time you see it.
You witnessed.
Yeah. I feel old. Man, it's hot. Relaxing. We'll see.
You advertising?
And we're all checking ourselves.
It'd be swimming, yeah.
What meetings either.
They didn't know about it. Maybe I don't know.
Why is it 6 months?
We were talking about B1 and waterfront for last time. We were in the
No, what's that?
we decided to move it up so we'd have a chance to talk about the zoning for B1 and the waterfront. It's more time.
Where did the initial idea for all this from?
Right, just less time for me to eat dinner, take a shower.
Well, waterfront came about.
No.
No one else is working.
Plus with the Airbnb.
Too much freedom.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Maybe you're trying to get some water or something.
Yeah.
Just so that it's part of. And did you get any comments? Thing for today? Okay.
It's not 6 months. Okay, we're going to call the town council meeting of July 25th, 2022 to order. Tammy, could you please take the roll?
Councilmember Berger,
Present.
Councilmember Gillespie. Present. Councilmember Holdren.
Present.
Councilmember Marino. Present. Councilmember Knox.
Present.
Councilmember Oswald. Here.
Are
And
you sure?
Mayor Bosky.
Present.
A quorum is established.
Thank you. All right, pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We need a motion to approve meeting minutes from the June 27th town council meeting.
Wait a minute, quick question. I thought it was a work session. And then
No,
a meeting.
no, we advertised it as a meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The dates,
That's correct, right?
the dates were.
I changed that.
Oh,
I thank you.
Yeah.
Are we doing corrections?
Yes, yes,
Oh,
I have any
okay.
questions, yeah.
On page 4, I think it's ANTDC. And on page 1,
Where are you talking about? No.
page 3,
Item 7.
Yeah, I got it.
yeah,
Oh, right,
AN,
yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
well, actually, it's page
And
3,
hyphen
number
TDC.
4.
Go ahead, page-
then-
Also on page
Page four,
4,
same thing.
items.
Yes, that same
Number
thing, 7, yeah. It's in there twice wrong.
Did you have something else, Sarah? 'Cause I don't know.
Oh, I see, it's typed page 4, handwritten page 3.
Yeah, that's what's confusing.
I sent mine to Debbie.
They were updated.
Thank you.
There's typos. in there.
I have
Yeah.
a couple
Okay.
comments and such. On page 1 of the minutes, 2 in the packet. It says Councilmember Oswald asked if homestay properties will have limits on distance between and no limit on the number of properties owned. Town manager verified this was the intent of the ordinance. I question if that is the intent. of the
Yeah,
ordinance.
I agree with you. There should be, the intent is to not have a limit on the number of properties owned within the B1 and also no distance between them because of the proximity.
Okay, but what did you ask? I didn't go back and watch the video.
Oh,
The topic is BW at the top of that paragraph. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes,
That
why-
was
why
right
would
here
that
on
come up in
page
B1?
1.
I know, I'm on page 1, but
Right
right
here.
here. I saw that.
This was the waterfront. This is,
Yeah,
this
it's the
was about the
waterfront,
waterfront. And
Okay,
we were talking about what could possibly be there.
Correct. So the question would be, is it a business district? And if it's a business district, then the intent that planning commission brought up was that there would be no limit on the number of properties inside of a business district and also no consideration for the space between them like we do in the
They could be
residential.
continuous.
but that's not what the minutes say.
That's correct. And that's why, but I would have to go back and watch the video to find out because the minutes
The
are.
question was, what she was asking is, will they be limits? Will there be distance?
Right.
And the intent is for no. The intent is to allow as many as possible.
So
For the obvious
verifying that that
reasons.
is the intent is,
Somewhere there
Not
should
correct.
probably have been a period because my question, that's what my question was, will there be limits? And the answer was no,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
so no limit, basically. Watch the video.
Right.
I think we changed that one a couple of
Okay.
Already.
Are we okay on that? We okay on that?
Yes, I'm fine with it.
Okay,
Well,
Okay, can I get a motion to accept the minutes as
Is that it?
corrections?
Mr. Mayor, I move we accept the minutes as corrected.
We have a second? All in favor?
Who
Opposed?
was the
Who
second?
was the second?
Me.
Thanks, Cindy.
Okay. We've got a lot of things here on council discussion. The first item is the Industrial Revitalization Fund Resolution. It's somewhat new, a little bit
Yeah, I just-
complicated.
Yeah, can we just ask Janet to
Yeah,
explain?
yeah.
Because this is really,
This is coming from the Main Streets thing.
Well, I'm gonna try. I've been familiarizing myself with it as fast as I can. This is coming to you all with some urgency,
Use the
because,
microphone, please.
yes,
Thank you.
it's,
can you hear me? The deadline for this application is working, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be close to your mouth, I think.
Thank you.
There you go.
The deadline for the application is the 19th of August. And honestly, we had thought we would look at the next fiscal year, and then we found out some things, and mainly we found out that the Williston Buildings project was shovel ready. And so we decided to go for it this year. We're able to apply each year. And for the next 2 fiscal years, there's a large amount of money available in this fund that has never been there before and won't be there after. So we want to take advantage of both fiscal years. What this is it's a fund to help redevelop a blighted vacant property that is going to be catalytic to the economy of the area it's in, and will be at least 30% commercial use. So it can have upstairs residential, it can't be all residential. It can't have started out as a residential solely residential property, like rehabbing an apartment complex. Excuse me. Started to lose my voice the minute I came in. The beauty of this is that before, they usually awarded up to $600,000 to 2 to 3 projects a year. That there was only $1.5 million in the whole fund. The ARPA funds that have been added to this are adding $22 million for the next 2 fiscal years. So 22 this year, 22 next year. They're allowing, they've always had a 1-to-1 match with the previous years. They're allowing up to $1 million with no match required. Now, the developer of the Williston building, with the purchase price, which is countable as part of the match, and with the amount of money he's already put in with some architect's fees, has spent $270,000. That will go towards extra credit in the application. But here's the big deal. If we get this loan, if we get this as a private recipient, it will come to the town to hand to him as he hands in receipts as a loan, up to 20-year loan at 2.5% interest. The town keeps the money as it's paid back and gets to use it as a revolving loan fund for any other projects that qualify under the IRF guidelines. So this, in the first year, I did some fast math, and I'm always wrong when I do fast math, and that will correct me. But my estimation was in the first year paying back on a $1 million loan, that this town would already have $50,000 to start loaning out again to the next eligible person, and we keep it. They're looking into enrichment. Let me see if I anticipate your questions. They're looking into enrichment because apparently nobody had asked the question, will this expire when ARPA expires? Is that the question? Close. And they've run it up the chain, and they think that's not going to be a problem because it doesn't really make accounting sense. How would they ever figure that out? If you're loaning it out for 20 years, we're way past ARPA deadlines. But they are double checking, just so we've dotted all our I's. We're not able to build in administrative costs, but the administration is fairly small for this, as we understand it. But you get to keep the 2.5% interest and you can put that towards administration. They just came back from Richmond and confirmed that. So I'm probably leaving out some stuff, but why don't I just take questions from you all, if there are any?
So it's a loan, and as it's paid back, or in the first year, are you paying principal and interest? How is this going? And because most loans there's only interest. And are you reuse those funds immediately for another building or another project such as
My
this?
understanding is that the minute that the town has repayment funds coming in, they are the town's funds. They do specify that they be used for projects that fit the IRF requirements. But my understanding is, that the minute you have $1,000 back, you can then loan it out again.
And is this, my other question is that because this is a town and private and all this kind of stuff, it's a little shaky ground to me that this combination. But the other thing is the qualifications for the loan as the next person comes up. How do they change, or are the qualifications for this loan set in stone?
So the way they've answered that question from Richmond is that it's very specific. I mean, the application is a pretty big lift, and Main Street will do most of the work. The developer will do a lot of it. Matt has said he has some data he can supply us, but we're not trying to burden the town with the application process. But it is clearly outlined the kind of understandings, if we get this money, the kind of understandings, and basically the developer will be signing a loan agreement and giving over the lien to his property to the town.
Okay.
So the town will be like the bank loaning him the money and
How
receiving
big are you?
the payments. And anyone else coming along, everything,
Yeah,
anyone else coming along, everything would apply.
The Northeast project. Yeah.
well, but that project fell apart where, because this is exactly why I'm saying, that asking the questions I am. Because the Northeast project, 10 years ago, nobody knew where the funds were. Nobody knew where the status of that was. HUD didn't know, HUD didn't exist. ANPDC, I asked them all, nobody knew. So you're talking a 20-year loan, I'm saying, this is a long-term project.
Up to 20 years. It
Up
doesn't
to-
have to be. 20.
Right, it doesn't have to be.
And just to be clear,
But
if,
things
if
get muddy.
they do, but we've got a pretty hot team over here just keeping things straight
Yeah,
for
for
us
the
these
next
days.
6-7 years.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. And Main Street will be around keeping an eye on that hot team, so.
All right, don't get too excited. But the agency is there and I understand that. And the agency also dropped the ball on Northeast. They knew nothing when I asked, and I went through layer after layer to find out where those funds were.
Can I chat on that one
Yeah, I'm
for a
wondering
second?
about how to
Because
reassure Mavis.
The DHCD has developed a new portal that they manage for all of their grants or loans, where all of the backup, all the data, the monthly and quarterly reports get submitted to that portal. And then they keep records of absolutely everything, and they have people up at DHCD who are monitoring that. So like for the Northeast project, I already have uploads and monthly reports, data that we submit and all of that. And we've got each of our projects in that portal. So I would have to say this is pretty well managed.
And it's newer, I mean, this is computer age, and that was not, so that makes
Yeah.
a big
Well, we
difference
did
as
this
And
well.
also that the
25
scope
years
for this
ago,
loan is well over the
They paid
audit,
the
so
town back.
the
We got
auditors
money.
will be all up in this.
Yeah,
And we never knew what to do
and we
with the
never
money.
knew where the money was.
No, it was,
after a while.
we had money and we did something, we had money from it. But yeah.
And I did get an
was small.
answer back from Richmond. I asked that because Matt had posed this to me, would the town have any liability if the developer failed to pay? The town has no liability. The exact answer was they will need to place a lien on the property as part of their loan documents, and we will require a deed restriction as well, that any use has to be IRF eligible for at least 10 years.
Okay,
Okay,
maybe I
good.
didn't
That's a good
hear that
answer.
clearly or understand you, but the loan fails, or the project fails and they don't go forward, there's a lien on the property. Does the town then get that property?
That's what happens when you're the bank and you have.
No,
a
not if the property is not worth the amount of the lien.
Yeah.
Right.
No, That means the lien would have to be cleared before it could be sold.
Okay, but then it just sits there
It would
until
have
such
to-
time.
Yes. It
But
would have to
make
be
this-
sold or some other disposition.
Okay,
My understanding is too, that while the town will be awarded the funds, they will give them to the developer as he gives the receipts.
right.
So it's not like all of a sudden he's gonna have $1 million in his pocket.
Right, I'm not worried about that, I'm just worrying about a project that starts out and ends up undone.
Well, my answer to that would be, this money should sure help ensure that this project gets done.
I've been involved with the Northeast project from day one. And the big difference between these two is ANPDC administer the funds. The town basically just has cooperated, and that's done a good bit of work, I'm sure.
We're
And
actually
now-
responsible for submitting all the paperwork to CAMS up
Right.
through the DHCD portal. So we're doing more than cooperating. We're
Yeah,
actually doing
right.
quite a lot of administrative work.
Yes,
Not
but the
paid for either, right?
Not
the
one
money,
penny.
the money was not channeled through us. That's the big difference to me.
Well,
Let me finish, please. The money was channeled from ANPDC, that you're saying that's not correct.
the town fronts the money for this, and then the state reimburses the town.
But that's not my understanding.
That's not for this. No, this would be a straight,
The state will not reimburse.
No, the state's gonna reimburse after the developer spends the money.
No, the state's gonna give the town.
Right. The
The
money.
town will administer it as a loan to the developer.
And he will pay his bill and then we pay him back.
My understanding is he has to submit quarterly receipts for this. But
Receipts.
again, forgive me if I'm getting fine, if I need fine tuning in my understanding, because I'm learning this as fast as I can and sending questions to Richard.
We're also applying, this is the application, there's no guarantee we're gonna get this,
Well,
everybody's
yes.
aware of that, yeah,
Yes.
We're just passing it.
yeah.
And the resolution is basically so that the state has the assurance that the town is aware that we're making this agreement with this
We
developer.
did a resolution, for the grant they did before
Right.
that they didn't get, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Sarah?
I have a question on a different line. You were talking about the money as it comes back in becoming essentially a revolving fund.
A revolving loan fund that would be awarded under IRF guidance.
And my question is a very optimistic one. What happens if we run out of properties that fit those guidelines before the money is all respent?
Go show.
Well, if it's a revolving loan fund, it shouldn't get respent, should it? So that's a really good question.
Yeah.
And
You
I'll
can
ask
also
them,
reapply.
I'll ask them if we're flush with every single, property rehabbed, what happens then? Hopefully we won't be all too old to remember. the answer.
So do you
Good
have a
question.
commitment from the developer to do this? I mean, do you need any?
Yes, the developer is on board with doing his part of providing the paperwork. I will say that the first reaction of the developer, well, I'll say this first. He is not a novice at this.
Sorry, what?
He is not a novice in this field. This is a person who is taking this on, understanding exactly what he's getting into. In fact, his estimate of what it would take to bring this building back into service was 1.5 million after the purchase price. And our market study, feasibility study estimated 1.6. So he was pretty darn close. He knows what he's doing and is deeply invested in this community. His first reaction when I told him about this was being thrilled that if we get this on his behalf, that it comes back and provides $1 million to this town to keep loaning out. That was his first reaction. So I think that speaks for how deeply he's invested in the community.
Do we know who this is, or should we know, or do we know?
It's John Custis.
John Custis.
Okay, well, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I
it's a
wasn't-
group, yeah.
I heard that,
Yeah.
but I don't want to
It's not-
stop.
It's a partner group.
It's a group, he's got parties, partners.
Okay,
Who was our former county attorney.
exactly.
As the loan is reinvested into other projects. And as the next loans are repaid, does it just keep going?
That's what revolving means, is
And
my
I mean,
understanding.
is there a cap on the number of years?
They haven't said so. They have not. Richmond's, DHCD, Department of Housing and Community Development, is the umbrella under which Main Street operates. So Main Street's helping with this, but I mean, the town could have gone for it. It's just, one more
We
thing.
don't know,
So
so
it's $1 million that could be reinvested multiple.
Yes, that's my understanding. They have not put any kind of caveats on it at all. They just, I said, what happens when it gets repaid? Just come back to y'all, and they said, no, the town keeps it and creates a revolving loan fund.
Well, they're not exactly new. Revolving loan funds have been around forever. That'd be a quick answer to find out what they do with them at 20, they just
Right.
keep going, yeah. We've never had that before, yeah. So, so I mean, I guess so you're asking just for the resolution to support, to support this.
Yes.
So you get it in the application.
Yeah, there's no risk on y'all's part.
And like I said, they're just applying. It's not we might not get it. So it's competitive.
So shall I make a motion to that effect?
A question, please, you gave us a deadline of the 19th of August,
That's when we have to submit this application.
and there is no future submittal period that we could look
Next
at?
year.
A year from now.
A fiscal year from now, which means we would have wasted the opportunity to get this much money this time. We're coming at this again for the second go around there are a couple of other properties that we're just waiting for them to be shovel ready. In the fall, there will be planning grants that we can get ahead of this to help those properties become shovel ready. And we're gonna go for that and then apply in the next fiscal year for this exact same thing again.
And what are those properties?
I'd rather not say right now, if you don't mind.
Other derelict buildings.
Yeah,
Probably figure it out.
I think, yeah,
It has to be a derelict. It has to be, yeah.
but I don't want to call somebody's property blighted right now.
Or any questions?
Thank you for putting up with us doing this on such short notice. I know it means you've got to do a lot of trusting. Sarah?
I guess my other question is, what are the obligations or the risks to the town in doing this?
My understanding is they're going to give a lot of guidance on how to set up the loan fund and how to, I mean, he replied to me because I asked him, because Matt had asked me, what's our liability? And he said the town won't have liability to repay the grant if the private developer defaults. They will need to place a lien on the property, as I read earlier. And I can give this to you for your notes if you need it. So my understanding is that you're protected the same way a bank would be protected if they're loaning money on the property.
So Janet, would the lien be between the state and the property owner? Or with the town?
My understanding is the money is given to the town sets up the loan. The money is between the town and the developer.
And ANPDC
They don't have anything to do with it.
handles the whole process.
They hold our hands to the whole process.
ANPDC has nothing to do with this.
No, not ANPDC, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
DHCD.
Okay.
DHCD.
Is there
alphabet-
any way,
Alphabet soup.
is there any way it could be a loan between the developer and DHCD and the town? But then we
It's
lose the
not the way they-
revolving fund.
It's not the way they set it
And
up.
we're getting money there.
And actually, we won't lose, the town won't lose at all, because they're gonna give us this $995,000, as I said, okay, you're gonna start with this developer. And as he pays back, then you can use it for other projects, for other people who need to, bring their buildings up to par, their businesses up to par. So the money won't actually come out of the funds of the town of Hancock at all, right?
You
Is that
you
my
do need,
understanding?
yes, but,
But we're liable.
the first iteration of this resolution, we weren't sure if we could come up to $1 million. And after I double checked with Richmond, they said, yes, anything up to $1 million, not a penny over, but up to $1 million didn't need a match. So if we were asking for $1 million and a penny, John would have to match the entire $1 million with his own expenditures. So it's not,
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I
it's
put
$1
a new
million.
motion in front of everybody before the meeting that has the million and also the developer's name in it.
Nice round number.
Mr. Mayor, we have a public comment. about this.
I think he's here. if he wants to.
I'm gonna get my phone real quick, because John was listening in, and he might text me if he has anything to say.
He's standing right here. Let's let him do this.
And there are no other projects bidding on this at this time?
No, they're not.
There's
shovel ready.
nobody shovel
They're
ready.
talking to a couple people. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nobody else is ready.
nobody else is ready.
Okay.
Anybody?
And again, it also needs to be a project that will be catalytic to the change in the economy of the downtown. So Joy, when I mentioned earlier, we're what we call 100% corner, the corner of North Street intersecting with Market. You can kind of derive from that what else would be catalytic. We're just waiting for it to be ready.
Bathrooms.
I won't, never mind, I'm not going there. Stand-up comic, I have to stop. Can I make anything else clear?
Any
We're pretty
comments from
excited. we
anybody?
did it.
Comments? Give motion.
Did you say something about this? Is that what you were asking, a letter?
Yeah, but Hayden's here. Hayden,
Oh,
you
yeah.
want me to read your comment or you want to make?
Well, no, I think Dennis answered it very well. Although I did think of one question while she was speaking. Is it possible that we would get not all of the money, or is it always all or nothing for this thing?
That's where I'm hesitating a little. I think I'm speaking correctly when I say that we're going to be given $1 million. And if we ask for $1 million, my understanding is that they try to give you what you're asking for. They could say, well, we've looked at the project and we think we're only gonna give you 900,000. They could do that.
Right, well, that's
But
the
once
100,000 difference. What if they said 400,000?
They could do that.
Yeah, but then we'd be in a kind of a pickle because the chances are the developer can't raise that much more. I don't know whether he can or not, but you see what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So now suddenly we've got this money aimed at this project, but actually there's no project. So
But if
that's-
the developer then says, sorry, I can't do it for that, then we just say thanks, no thanks to DHCD.
okay, all right.
Okay.
Or if the developer only does $500,000 worth of investment, then just do the other $500,000.
Yeah.
They could raise that. I mean, this is inexpensive money, 2.5% over 20 years. It doesn't keep it from going to a private lender and securing the remainder of whatever
I just-
funding is.
Trying to answer his question, maybe I think Steve asking if the whole $1 million is spent. We received the $1 million.
Yeah.
But they,
Oh, I
after a
see.
few months, decide to dump the project for some reason.
Right.
Ray, I'm not 100% certain I'm accurate, but generally in our dealings with DHCD, and Matt can attest to this, they don't always hand you everything all at once. And so it's possible that they may say, you know, we're giving you this much, make sure your developer spends it, then we'll come back and do more. Sometimes they kind of have a couple of rounds of dispensation.
That's an accurate summary.
So I would guess that's kind of how this is going to happen.
All right. So we have a
Thank
motion.
you.
Just a motion for or just the resolutions there.
So just read the resolution
You just have to, a motion to
to accept the
accept the
resolution.
route as written.
So I move we accept the resolution as written.
Second. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you. All right.
Now, please keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's just an application. There's no guarantee. Yeah. All righty. Okay, we're on to, the purpose of the meeting earlier tonight was actually just, moving the hour up is discuss, B1 and the waterfront district zoning, which is, and so I'd like to start on that now. I'd like to kind of go through this in a somewhat of a orderly way, and that we don't skip around, you know, from thing to thing. Yeah, it's you have the zoning, the request for things we talked about at the public hearing. So I'm just going to go on the first page here, on page 1 of 3. What's in black is what we've always had, and we've changed it to red. So the statement of intent, is everybody all right with that? The only thing I talked to Matt about it was change the word retail to commercial, because retail is somewhat, you know, we don't have a lot of
Where
retail.
are you on number 8?
No, I'm on article, the top page.
At the top it says.
The statement of intent, right here.
Yeah.
Here, it just says,
So
it
there's
says
no
use of the word
idea.
retail, and I thought that was, you know, we have more than
Commercial.
commercial is a better word. That's just
Yeah.
minor.
I agree.
So does anybody have any problems with that? Okay. And then okay, then go down to the other new thing was residents on floors above the ground floor shall be, this is one of the big changes, shall be permitted by right. Anybody have any problems with that? Well, that was a big change. Number 1, that's a change. I want you to be aware of that. They're only allowed by special use now. We're gonna allow it by right.
Okay,
Yeah.
and this is in B1.
B1, this is all B1.
Yes.
Only B1, yeah. That's a change, so that's one of the, this is probably one of the 2 changes in this whole ordinance that's critical, you know, that's different, you know, except for minor wording and stuff like that. You know. This is the recommendation of the planning commission, I think, so do we have any problems with that?
Having residences in the B1.
Upstairs. Yeah, you used to have to apply for special use permit, now it's just by right. And if you look at our B1 district, there's probably, I don't know how many, there's only half of them have second floor, so, you know, there's only, maybe 20, I figured a number at some
Yeah, I
point.
think we went through and said if every building with an upstairs that had access, we put the number in where we'd be in the 20 to 24 range.
Yeah, so I'm not talking about a, you know, 100 or anything like that, yeah.
But there was even an opportunity or a discussion at one point of a loan arrangement with, or some kind of grant arrangement to get apartments up on buildings downtown.
Well, I think that's outside the purview of the zoning here. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but that's not a zoning issue. Yeah,
But I'm just, okay.
yeah, I'm just trying, yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, that, we certainly could try to do that, but I think this is one step to allow people to do it without having to come to get a special use permit. It's just nothing they have to jump through, and it's at the whim of whoever's the town council.
Right.
And like I said, we already have, well, 3 of our buildings are already, you know, much
Well, I
already.
think that would support probably one of the main missions of having a mixed-use development, which is
Yes.
probably a very core principle of Main Street.
Very much so, yeah. I mean,
It's not living in working conditions.
yeah, I mean, the money, you know, the residential rent is what keeps, you know, there's not a lot of commercial, you know, there's not a lot of huge demand for commercial property.
You know, if you don't allow those, then it's
Yeah,
not gonna work.
But we allow it by special use, and to my knowledge, we've never turned down anybody in the B1 district. I can't be wrong. So anyway, is everybody all right with that? Yeah. And then the next 3 are ones we had in there before: professional, banks, theaters, restaurants. We've got we close before 11 p.m. This is more of a definition.
That's the definition of the restaurant, because it,
Well, I think a nightclub is a different definition. Yeah, they close.
So-
Yeah.
okay.
Is that
well,
correct, Matt?
Yeah,
Am I correct? That's-
yeah, and the next page, there's,
Yeah.
it speaks to nightclubs.
Yeah, signs are obviously, you know, allowed. The next one,
Should that read personal service commercial stores instead of retail on number
probably,
7?
yeah. Well, I mean, other things are listed as professional businesses, other things are listed, so this is, yeah, maybe you're right, bar shop's not a retail. You can change that wording if you want.
Gotcha, yep.
Commercial, yeah,
Commercial businesses
right, yeah,
Personal service commercial.
or businesses,
stores.
I mean, commercial and business is redundant.
yeah.
right,
Business, or personal service businesses.
well,
Yeah.
why can't,
Yeah, you don't have to say stores.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
businesses.
rather than retail stores, just put businesses.
Yeah. I'm not changing that. But we're still keeping the personal service, yeah, right, yeah, right. Okay, then number 8, we basically just taken out, you know, we just said retail sales
definition of all.
definitions, yeah, so we had this problem with the, you know, with the definition of retail sales, and this makes it simpler, yeah. We're not trying to list everything. The same with public utilities.
So, and the only difference in restriction then is that, or the only criteria then is for businesses that are with no age restriction. So anybody wants a business in that district without an age restriction, seems like that's what you're open to. Am I wrong?
Well, retail sales, yes. Right,
Any
yeah.
retail sales.
Right, yeah, well, that's, the existing thing is, you can see what the, you know.
Yeah, but I'm seeing what you're saying as we've taken out all the examples of, so that any business that does not have products with an age restriction can be in this district.
Right, yeah, that makes sense.
Clear?
Well, they also include Virginia ABC schools. They did not, however, make the legalization of marijuana here.
Something about.
That's still up in the
state
air,
here
you know.
too.
I think we're premature on that one, you know, we might have to change our, at some point. We can change this, you know, next year, if we have to. The state's still full with that.
With the vape.
Well, no, the marijuana thing. Public utilities, anybody have any questions about that? Libraries, exercise gyms, that's pretty, no, maybe change. The other major chain is 13 here. Homestays as defined in 3877, with no limit on distance between homestay properties and no limit on number of homestay properties owned. So we're now going to allow homestays in the B1 district without they still have to get a homestay.
Special use.
No, they don't.
Where, what,
This is a proposal.
okay, my question is, where in B1 would they be? Like,
In the apartments.
okay,
Yeah. in the apartment, in the apartments.
above, okay.
And in there's a house on King Street.
Yes, yes, you're right.
Between Jack Richardson and the back of the post office, I think it is.
Right.
That's still,
Yes.
is that B2?
But we-
That's still B1,
Yeah, I think there's the house next to the bank too, right? Yeah.
The house next to the bank, yes.
B1.
Okay.
And actually, the property I own is, no,
No,
that's not, that's in residential.
Caleb and Lynn Fowler's Market Street.
Yeah, right.
Is it zoned? I thought we zoned it residential.
I thought we
Where's
were
it
zoned
at?
residential when they did the
Oh, we did do that.
Airbnb, so it's zoned residential and it's got a young family living
Right,
there.
okay, sorry, I misspoke, yeah, okay. So that's,
One behind the bank is the one I thought you were talking about.
the one behind the bank is R1, that's not.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's where, what's her name? So, all right, okay, is everybody happy with that? Questions?
What's the special about 10 rooms at the top?
I don't know.
Not one before 12.
Was this-
What would be 10?
It was
Why not?
simply the size I found in other ordinances of similar towns. Anything over 10 was considered larger and they needed a special use permit. Under 10, like the Charlotte, would be fine by right. That's kind of the difference, and that's, you know. it's
But
just
is
good.
that necessary? I'm, now that you brought that up, I'm just wondering whether 10 makes sense in the B1 district, if you went straight up to the maximum, I think. Do we still have a height
Yes,
maximum?
yes.
Okay.
2.5 stores.
You're not gonna be able to get more than 10 in the zone, right?
Yeah, exactly, that's why
I'm not saying it's not here.
that was the logic of the similar sized town.
All right, so we're okay with 10?
Yeah.
Churches and other places of worship, so it should be of and not or worship. I think that's a typo.
Thank you.
Town-owned welcome centers and or public restrooms.
Restroom, thank you, and slash or.
I kind of have a problem with the welcome centers because we don't have one.
Yeah, we do,
We don't have one at this moment.
right.
So why are we writing an ordinance for
Because
one?
we're gonna have one. Right, so we want the property.
I know we bought the property, but we haven't agreed to a plan. We haven't seen any designs. We don't know what we're doing with
But
it.
we want one.
There you go.
I think whether we
We're
put it
writing
in,
an ordinance for something we don't have.
but I don't think whether we have it in here or not is gonna stop us from putting, I mean, you could
The
could say that-
intention of that
say it's an
purchase.
office, I mean, it's
Town-owned
basically,
properties, I mean,
to me,
town-owned properties, make it more general instead of so
Right,
specific.
you could, couldn't it be considered a business office if it's a, you know, I mean, it's, the town does business, you know, I don't know. I don't know, I don't have,
I would like it to be bigger, that's all I'm saying.
I mean, if you change it to
Specify
town-owned properties, it doesn't handcuff anybody to anything down the road and they can change it to a
Okay,
hookah farm.
okay,
gotcha.
I got it.
yeah, good point, all right. Public parking, that's obviously parking.
So what are we ending up with on 16?
Town-owned properties.
And or
Instead of
public
welcome
bath,
centers.
and, we don't have to put public bathrooms in there?
Yeah, we
Wouldn't
do.
think so if it's
We're-
We own it,
town-owned.
we own it.
property.
Of course, you're right, yeah, town and properties, yeah, okay.
Yeah, public, yeah, it's all
Well, wait a minute, you just can't have,
town-owned properties.
well, there's nothing on the town, that doesn't,
So then you
Well,
can
it-
scratch
it's-
18 because that
You
would
can be
included
whatever
in
you want to
town-owned
be there, if it's a town-owned property, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah,
building.
and
Don't you have to-
saying strike 18.
don't you have to say something what you're doing with it? You just can't say town owned properties. This is the principal permitted use.
Yeah, because then
You
we
gotta
can
say what
buy
you-
anything we want.
You gotta say
Use
structures
one.
on or uses yeah. That doesn't make sense.
Why don't we say what we know what we're going to do, just for this moment?
I don't know
Change
we're
it.
gonna do that. And
Why?
we don't either.
Why
We
don't-
haven't seen the plans, we haven't seen anything.
Can you say municipal use?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Municipal use.
Municipal buildings, how about that? Yeah, municipal buildings.
Town-owned
Is
property,
this
same thing.
building?
No, the property doesn't mean one use. It's not, it's just a property.
So municipal buildings.
All these are uses, theaters, banks, you can't just say property, that's not
Okay,
use, yeah.
so municipal
Buildings, yeah.
buildings.
Municipal use.
Or yeah,
Municipal use.
for municipal
What about
buildings.
just municipal use?
Municipal use, yeah, okay, that makes more sense. Yeah, you have to have a use, yeah, that's all. That's all.
That was Debbie's word, not mine.
Yeah, that's good, that's good.
I don't want to take credit.
Okay, public parking, and then we're down to public outdoor spaces, including community gardens. What is it, what's the definition of a community garden? Is that like a vegetable garden or just a garden with, could be,
Yeah, I took this from another
yeah,
locality.
I mean, I like to be.
You could scratch it all and use it as municipal uses. It just be.
Exactly.
Well,
right.
or could the John Custis, I mean, not John Custis, John, what's the name that I gave you the flyer for? Robert Custis Park
Mhm.
be
The one on the
considered
corner
that.
by the post office.
Yeah.
Well, that's a municipal use, yeah, that's a town owns that.
Yeah.
It would fall under that.
But it's not a building, so I was just,
And we didn't say building, we just said municipal use.
Well, we don't have any community gardens, so we can scratch those.
Well, and scratch including community, just public outdoor spaces.
Yeah, because somebody might want to make a public that we don't necessarily own. You know, like if they wanted, if they wanted to make a little park, you know, like, you know. All right, art galleries, artisan studios, or craft production.
I had a suggestion on this one because I think we have, well, I know in my personal past, having a metal fabricator live next door to me was not a happy experience due to the noise level. So I think that we need to put in some qualifying language about noise,
Right, and
no
craft-
external noise. If we're gonna allow craft production,
And
And what's the
smell
definition of craft
and-
production?
no idea.
Can we make this more restrictive than on a public hearing now? That's where.
These are pretty vague, so the restrictions would be noise and odor.
Right.
And that's where I'm kind of getting, like, can we put that in another,
In the special
yeah,
exception.
Well, we have that down and we have the noise and odor down in the,
Especially.
at the waterfront. You had pretty good language there.
yeah,
You could bring it up to, you know, we addressed it at the waterfront, but for some reason we didn't address it at the B1. Which to me is, if you got apartments on the second floor and you let a metal fabricator in the first floor, that's not gonna be compatible, you know, or some artisan guys, you know, what, we had somebody doing a market one time that's doing jewelry, pounded jewelry with a mallet, you know, it's noisy, you know? And of course, they're only there at night, you know, but still, they could work. So if we can come up with a,
I have, obviously, we already researched the restrictions for noise and odor down at the waterfront. So I'm trying to think if we could insert similar language here. We've got areas that I've got reserved, so why don't I put it in, you know, like 38, 156 type of thing? And just put a separate section for noise and odor.
is that okay with everybody?
We could, I don't know if we need that much detail. I mean, you know, you've got somebody making crafts and all of a sudden if they're having 2 tractor loads of crafts shipped away from their house every day, we're probably gonna have some complaints.
Yeah.
So we're gonna cap, you know, how many crafts you can make.
Well, no, we're talking about
You make
noise.
somebody in there making bird's nests, you know, and they're shipping out 2 tractor loads.
We're talking about noise though.
But it would be, an example would be, you know, circular saws that get used to,
Or routers.
And
Yeah,
routers, and all that
exactly.
going on, creating
that-
these crafts.
We have that.
But
We have that. Besides the.
And then imagine all the
I know
people
that.
coming out while we're eating
Yes.
those
I know.
things.
urchins and stuff
Yes, and he's moving over to.
back to there.
I don't know, it's gonna be interesting. Yeah. Well, I think we need a noise, some kind of noise. You know.
Well, can you restrict noise in a business district? I mean, just because now you're okaying apartments up and everything, and somebody was doing that. Now you say this is, your business doesn't fit our desires.
Well, you know,
I think you're getting a little,
Craft production is pretty broad.
pretty broad, you say? And if you leave it like that, but then you're gonna add noise restrictions and whatever.
Right, I think you're going to come up with all kinds of restrictions.
well, you can take craft production out, just say artisan studios and craft.
No craftspeople.
Well, no, but I mean, artisan is a craft craft production, the word production.
That's-
I mean, the art galleries and
Crafts is a crafts.
art galleries,
Production.
artists, and artists in the studios, and artists can be making cutting boards, you know, and then he could be making,
Okay, do you
he
ever
could
see,
be making jewelry.
do
and-
you ever see the guys who make, metal art that hangs on a wall?
Yeah.
And see what it's craft.
I
It's-
know, yeah, but it's
but it-
artisan, yeah.
Yeah, but it's an artisan, but it's noisy.
Well,
It's a
that's the
big
problem.
deal. I
So
mean,
even if you remove craft, you still gonna, you always have that issue. I mean, yeah. So that's up to the council if we want to do a noise thing. But if you take, at least if we take the word production, that scares me a little bit.
So I'll remove or craft production.
And then it's
I mean,
production.
I mean, my
About
opinion would
craft
be,
beer.
we keep it as is until we get residents complaining. I mean,
No, that's a mistake. Then you have to be retroactive to make
And
somebody angry.
specific to that person.
Yeah, then you think they're coming after you. If you have it in place before, you know, then you don't have to be the bad guy until, you know.
Well, and they're also, if they will,
They have to get a permit to do the business in their first place, right? And
a business license.
Right, so do you, well, you don't say what the business is when you get a business license?
Yes.
And don't you know what it is when you give them the license or not?
But if there's no rules about
But
it.
if somebody says, I'm an artisan,
Right,
you know, we sign it and give it to them, and the next thing you know, they're fabricating metal and welding and saw cutting.
right. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, well, that, I would love to help with dealing with that, to be quite honest with you. So I think a noise and odor ordinance as part of this would help.
Well, as Hayden has pointed out, if you go with the 1,000 feet, that includes people as far, I hope you don't mind me quoting you, Hayden, as far away as Mount Prospect and the other side of East Street.
Yeah,
Who's going to call those people? What recourse does a business owner have to them both is making a fence voter? So,
It can reduce the circumference.
okay. And the decibel level we discussed last time. too.
well, they
Yeah,
can
I-
be immediate neighbors. I mean, there are neighbors. You know, I don't know. It's noise prosecutions are a pain in the neck. I mean, they're difficult, you know. We had problems with, you know, the bars, you know, enforcing noise ordinance. In fact, you know, it's always been an issue, but we need to try to do something because you're right. If they're running power saws, of course, they want music upstairs too, but we have an ordinance for that.
Well, isn't there, in the business district, could you, for artisans in that production, could you limit the time to nothing after, like you do at the wharf, nothing after 8 PM or whatever it is? I don't know what that noise restriction was, but if it's a business, I mean,
Because it's 11, yeah.
if it's a,
not for the
Well,
wharf.
my thought is if it's a quiet noise, I mean, sorry, not a quiet noise, a quiet creation process, then what does it matter if somebody's a night owl?
And works
Well,
all
Danny
night.
Dowdy. for
Yeah, I was gonna say, Danny's up pretty
instance,
good.
That's probably a stupid question, but in B2, don't we allow light production or
Yes,
something?
different.
Isn't that
That's the where it should be, yeah.
right? Are we trying to move that sort of thing to B2
Yes.
versus B1?
Exactly.
Okay.
So I'm just saying, though, if you put all these the noise restrictions and all that, you're inviting the trouble that you don't have, or talking about the trouble you don't have. Because you wouldn't give that business a license in the first place. It shouldn't be there for the first place, it'd be one.
But the point is that
So
artists.
we don't ask, I mean,
How do
that's
you
not
know?
part of the license.
Right.
And from experience with the metal fabricator, I couldn't stay home sick. I mean, you can't have a sick day, you know, and expect to sleep in your residence during the day if you have a metal fabricator next to you.
I don't know what that is.
I mean, limiting it to outside of daytime or limiting it to daytime
That's
hours
why I said
doesn't
that.
help the residents at all.
No. All right.
Well, and it kind of was.
One of the problems of mixed use development.
Well, it is,
You know,
yeah.
it's gotta-
Yeah. But is it possible if you could come up, look at, other towns must have something that you can look up, come up with some language for us about a noise thing and leave the wording as it is and then come up with something that, because it doesn't sound like we're gonna be able to, just because we take out craft production, we're still gonna have artisans, that's not gonna solve anything.
Right.
So if you come up with some language for next time, let's see what we think about it.
So is is your thinking to accept this with the amendments that we're making now and then plan to put in a separate
Yeah, no, it's-
section later?
I would probably put down where the regulations are.
Probably gonna have
Just
to go-
add one of the sections 38-156 and make it noise.
Yeah, I think we're probably gonna have to go out to another public hearing and do noise stuff. That's gonna be somewhat, that's pretty restrictive. I think we could do that in a second. That's maybe.
So, but that we can at least get the rest of it.
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. Is that okay with everybody? All right, try that. See, if we don't like, then if we don't like the noise thing.
Noise, you might as well do smell.
Well, that he is. gonna do that.
I'll do odor as well.
Get it all taken care of.
Yeah, right,
Yeah,
okay. All
Well,
right,
I mean, it's simply like painting, you know, somebody objects to the paint.
Well, that's where this is I found an ordinance from a larger town on noise that's actually pretty helpful. And it gives different types of different types of sound and all of that. Long, but it answers all the questions that you guys are posing. I'll find another one for odor.
all right, special exceptions. There'll be the following things, clubs and lodges with broad membership. So that's just changed. I guess it was originally just clubs and lodges. I think I had a question with Matt about what broad membership meant.
It just means that it's not exclusionary, so we wouldn't have a men's only club or anything like that. Removing with broad membership is a non-issue truly.
That's something we can enforce though, or something, I don't know. That's council.
This is, in this area, special exceptions, you are permitting these things by special use.
My special, yeah, special exception, yes. Yeah. And the original thing was just clubs and lodges, so it's up to council what they want to do with that, the word broad.
I asked the same question, what does that mean?
I don't know if that's a legal term or, that's a legally enforceable term or what.
But if you do a club with a membership, you can't restrict or tell them who their membership is.
Well, I'm not sure, that the town is gonna be,
Right.
it seems like the federal government's gonna be more involved in that than we are.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, do you even need to say, I think clubs and lodges was the thing in the first place?
I'm fine with just that, that's up to council.
I don't know.
Council.
You do.
I guess my question would be, what was the thinking behind the addition from the planning?
Yeah. We didn't want it to be exclusionary or discriminatory. That's the reason. So I struck it, no
I'm not saying, I
problem.
think
That's not, I don't
that's a
think
good,
anybody cares.
good goal, but I'm not sure if we can enforce that. That's just a swamp we're gonna get into. All right, hookah and vaping sales or lounges. Cigar, that's age requirement again, right? They have to be. So that's why.
Yeah, those would be age restricted products is,
Right.
and we also,
Isn't,
Uh,
So
but-
the next part of this question, that would be the same thing.
Well, the second one is an example of the third one. The new second one is an example of the new third one.
I'm confused about that one.
oh, we
Well, you have
we
it.
have an application or had an application for a hookah lounge.
Okay,
So, and if somebody wanted a cigar or a vaping lounge, which wouldn't be a stretch given we already had one for a hookah lounge, the question would be, do we want to see that and allow it by permit only because of the type of business? The next one, retail
so
establishment.
they're two separate items, is what you're, there are two separate items.
With age limitations would be anything from tobacco to firearms to pornography.
And what happened with that application?
He didn't pursue it because his business changed shape. He decided to do something different.
But there are two separate. There's number two and number three, they're two separate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's my question, okay. Anybody have any problem with on those? Any business open after 11 PM? Okay. The use of semi-trailers, trailers, or any movable or temporary structure used as accessory structures We talked about this before, and I forgot what you said about
The
this.
only reason that that was there was because one of our fellow towns had an issue with people who were just dropping old tractor trailer beds next to the building, using it for kitchen storage, using it for dry storage, and it was in their downtown. So they put this in there to preclude that from happening. Do I think it's going to be an issue for us? No, I don't. I don't see it, but
Was it food
right
truck?
now, it's also not a business use, it's a land use. So I think there's a question on whether or not this even belongs here.
But I think we should take it out personally.
Yeah, there's no reason to keep it. Truly, there's nothing compelling as far as I'm concerned.
So it's a little, yeah. Is it okay if we strike that?
Strike number 5 entirely?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hotels with more than 10 rooms, I think we actually touched on that before. We're okay with that?
Does it need to be in here?
Well, we have to have,
By
We
special use?
by special use, yeah.
Right. Under 10 is by right, over 10 you need to.
Oh, more, okay. Sorry.
This,
Which we're probably never gonna get. Public or farmers markets, when we did the original, open air produce and arts and crafts markets, we were trying to stay away from flea markets. So public market is somewhat, we had this system when we originally.
what is
allowed-
a public market?
Well, it could be a
A
flea
flea
market,
market.
yeah, so I like the old thing
do
better, open air produce and arts and crafts
Crafts
markets, yeah. And I know
No problem.
the current market is operating under a special use permit that requires them to have vendor produced. It's not in their zoning, but it's, I'm correct, yeah, it's that they can only sell vendor produced stuff, but that's in their special use. As a requirement we tacked on, it's not in the zoning. That's the beauty of a special use, you can put restrictions. So that's what they did, so. I'd like to keep it like it is. I think it's more better for the
Are you
town.
saying that the current market only has vendor use,
Only vendor produced.
vendor produced?
Yes, you can't go out and buy a bunch of sunglasses at Walmart and resell them at the market. No.
Can you do a flea market in the
Inside.
market, no, outside? Can you do it with a special use permit or time? Like to say the church wants to do a big flea
You can
market
do
in
four of
the
those.
whole parking lot.
You can do those 4 times. That's considered a garage sale, yard sale.
We can do that 4 times.
And you can do those 4 times a year, right? Am I correct?
I didn't think there was a number in there. I
Yep.
know we put
No.
one in finally.
There's a
I
number
thought
there.
we
I don't
did.
think we've ever had any issues about enforcing it.
Well, we did one time on Market Street is the reason why we did it.
Oh, right, yeah.
That's to keep it. for them.
But I think that would be considered, so nobody's gonna say, yeah. Anybody, any problems with that one? Then?
And you're suggesting that we retain the existing language?
I would, but that's, I mean, Janet, I'm kind of familiar with the only farmers markets we have, yeah.
Okay.
Perfectly fine.
And then, the number 8, I waited on that before, I think we should strike that, but, that's my, it's just, I mean, if somebody wants to,
What does that mean? This one?
well, it means that we can basically give a special permit and special use permit for anybody that shows up for anything they want to do. So if they want to come in here, if something's not in here, they can come in here and we can grant them a special use permit.
For temporary use.
No, for,
It says temporary or
Such
permanent.
other
temporary or
or
permanent.
permanent.
so if somebody wants to come in and do something that we haven't thought about and we can, well, yeah, the town council can just say, okay, if they want to do that, I think they should go through the planning commission and change the zoning first and let them weigh in on it, and then we can give them a special use. But I don't think that this body should just be able to give a special use for anything that's not even listed. And that I've spoken about that before. That's, I've looked at a lot of other zoning, I've been around zoning for a while. I think that's just not.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, if somebody wants, it doesn't mean that somebody can't do that.
Right.
Because
They just have
we're
to get it.
changing it here. We're allowing things that we didn't have before, but we went through the planning commission to give them a chance. Just another extra layer, I think, of protection that we don't want to be at the whim of the council that changes every 2 years, 4 years.
Yeah, let's strike it.
Okay. Does everybody agree with that? Yeah. Okay. And then, let's draw the following uses are strictly forbidden. Everybody, anybody have any issues with any of those?
And B1, right?
Yep. And then,
Oh, I added meat processing to number 2, because you're specifically saying seafood and poultry, but
Yeah.
meat is another story.
you get it.
I got it.
Okay. All right, and then I think we're through, any problem with frontage, yard height regulations, area regulations, setback, they're all the same.
I'm
Anybody?
sorry.
No.
I had a question about vehicle repair in this area, and because towns are moving, and we are too, moving to a lot of golf carts, is the repair, is a shop that does sales and repair, because they would be in a commercial district and they would be a retail business, but if they did repairs, they could not be in this district.
To me, if we had a golf cart, they should be in the B2 district. I mean, there's no room to park golf carts in any of the B1 areas anyway, but I couldn't be, that's why, I mean, if you look at the Cape Charles, their golf cart thing is kind of a little bit outside of town that you go.
Well, I
in,
know
right?
where it is,
Yeah.
but that's,
I mean, it's in a gas station, an old gas station, which to me is perfect for a week. That's money. Although you can't ride a golf cart out there, so
right.
I guess that is somewhat,
Yes, there's your
that is somewhat, we could, they tried to change
Small
that.
problem.
Yeah. Yeah, so I give a good point. I don't know. Is a golf cart a vehicle?
We can ride golf carts till the speed limit goes to 35, right?
No.
No,
25. And we tried to change the speed limit to the corner mark we tried to lower it to 25 and they said, oh, we'll lower it to 30. So now we have 25, 30, 35, 45. It's just ridiculous.
So it has to be in the 25
It has
zone.
to be in a 25 zone. So I don't know if you want, I don't know.
Okay, it was just a question I had, because I think we're moving more and more to that, in that direction.
Right. All right, and then the last thing is parking. My opinion is, I think we talked earlier about just table parking until we do a parking study and get some more
And
feedback from
needs and-
people.
Needs and all that, and I say.
Yeah,
we
and
just
I'm not saying table it forever, but we're gonna hopefully get a town plan here fairly soon and then we can proceed with that. Is everybody?
I agree with the mayor's recommendation.
I just wanted to respond to one of your questions, Hayden, which is that if you are an Airbnb guest or a hotel guest, the hotel or the Airbnb owner would leave you a permit for your use during your stay. I think that's the intent, right?
Well,
If that's for Airbnb, I can't imagine it would possibly work. Because at least in the one that's next door to us, people just show up. It's not like a regular B&B where you have an owner in the property who could give you the permit.
Well,
So
they
you
could
could leave
email
it-
it to
you
you to
could leave-
print and bring. or
You could leave
something.
permits around and say, take one.
well, that's how
But
it's done.
I could really see a lot of people not understanding the system and getting a ticket and being extremely unhappy.
May I say something here?
Yeah.
Because I use the Airbnbs a lot. And before we go, we know all the restrictions of the area. We also know where you can park and cannot park, and what you have to do upon arrival and departure. Everything is included in all that information. And where there would be any kind of parking permit required, that would be on the table with the keys and everything. So I'm just saying that it's usually, all those things are covered in the.
Okay,
in the
that's assuming
rental.
the owner is doing what he's supposed to and it's all,
Right,
but because this is particularly relevant to this business district because they need to know where the other parking areas are. The ones that are in residential districts usually have a driveway or someplace that you can park, so it
required
isn't a
parking.
problem.
right.
Okay, well, we'll see how it goes.
No, we need to address the parking thing. I don't think we're gonna try to attempt that tonight. We all know,
So, since all this is in red, do we not have any parking restrictions now at all?
Parking restrictions right now are things like there's no parking for trailers in overnight in
Where's
public
that?
lots.
Where's the current code?
This is just for.
This is
B1.
just B1. There's a full parking code. I actually sent all that out to council, a couple weeks back with these. I'll send it again.
Is the parking lot behind the theater B1?
Yes,
So that applies here. There was no restrictions before.
right. But
Because there
And there
used to be a
still isn't.
sign saying no overnight parking, but it's now gone.
Right, the reason for that is because we had people that needed to park overnight because they lived here and they park back there, so we didn't want to have anybody confused and receive tickets by accident, so we pulled the signs because.
Because we'd
people were-
rather have them there than on the street.
Correct.
well, I think, we had a couple. big trucks parked back there, but they don't say, I haven't seen that back recently now.
Yeah,
That's been a
that part of it is, I agree with you, Joy.
So,
But-
And
want
this
to
parking
word
lot is
that
big one too.
This be helpful.
tractor trailers are being stored.
Okay, so my question is, like, you permitted the hotel to use that by right because they were within 500 feet of the business. And so those spaces are, they have a right to use them. So also, the hotel, the bed and, when they had the bed and breakfast and everything else, those, the restaurant and the apartments up, they were all granted, they did these things knowing that they had parking. So why are we talking, I don't know, we're gonna table this.
Yeah, I think we need, I mean, I went to our seminar at the Main Street thing about parking in this San Robalas, the wine district in north of San Francisco, and they had big parking. They had no restrictions, and it's a tourist, small town, and people were coming in and parking, and their problem was that their workers were parking, using all the on-street parking. When people came in, there was no parking. So they created a bunch of satellite parking, they had like we did, and they gave free parking to all the workers, and they tried to, just do it by,
But free
Give
parking
it-
because they had paid parking.
well, yeah,
We
they gave
don't-
it to free, but it worked for about 3 or 4 months, and then all the workers started parking back down the street. So they finally, they went and invested in some pretty expensive, cameras to read license plate. They started giving tickets to people. And I'm not saying that's what we do, but parking's an issue. And they had a professional group study this, and, it was complicated. And I think we need, downtown parking is an issue.
Well, downtown parking, if you go through a town, this is a shopper.
Yeah.
You go through a town and there's nobody parked down the street, and that's what happens here
Yeah.
downtown. Most days, because I'm downtown every day, but most days, there's no one there. It looks like a ghost town. It looks
Exactly
like
right.
nobody cares. And if there's no parking overnight allows you security because like the police car parked on the street, nobody knows where that person is or who's out and about. So parking on the street in a downtown district, when it looks dead, gives cause for hesitation to do anything.
I'm open, that, I think we need to look at the parking, let's talk about it another time.
Okay, I agree.
It's not,
I suggest that we also consider the independent's recommendation. I think it's very reasonable.
we should really look at that.
And also, the parking in the Queen Street parking lot of tractor trailers and storage containers would be resolved by getting a parking permit, correct? Penalties. I have a point about penalties.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Okay,
I thought we were-
under penalties, you will have a criminal conviction on your record with a class 4 misdemeanor, which can have long-lasting consequences on your record for life. Examples,
This is nuts.
you're saying that the
But if you
state
make it-
says you have to do this?
This is that's
I
the
just want everybody to
penalty
be
for
aware what a
code.
class 4 misdemeanor
But you don't
is.
have to make it.
The
a
chief
crime.
has already said that doesn't go on anybody's record. That's where misdemeanor
You
is.
see,
It could be
Look
wrong.
at the definition of class 4 misdemeanor.
All I'm
It's
saying
on
is
your
this
record and
comes-
you
this
cannot get it expunged.
This comes from the state code, not us. We didn't write this. We took it straight off Virginia code. And the class 4 misdemeanor is a ticket. That's what it is.
No,
No,
parking
it's
ticket, a
not.
parking
It says
ticket.
it's class 4, no jail time,
Right.
up to 250.
Yeah.
Is it the fine that
Examples-
makes it a class 4?
Examples are assault, shoplifting, trespassing, disorderly conduct, or petty theft. Misdemeanor traffic offenses are much more serious than traffic infractions, which are tailgating, speeding, running a red light, or stop sign. If you have an infraction, you are written a ticket, you hand it to the person, and they pay a fine. Isn't that what we want to happen for parking violations?
Well, this applies more to, this applies to the whole
Anything
section.
in the whole thing.
Yeah, the whole
ordinance.
section.
Yeah.
So
Not
So
just
if you
parking.
put a trailer,
Parking tickets, it says parking penalties are issued by the police department. Fines are determined by the Virginia Uniform Fine Schedule.
Okay.
That's just a parking ticket.
So
Whatever.
you're saying everything else in this section, if they're in violation of that, is a class 4 misdemeanor?
I think that's a lot of it.
That's just the state code. This isn't something that we've made up or trying to make it more restrictive. This is literally copied word for word.
But it only applies if we apply the rest of this.
That's
I don't
The whole
understand.
section, the whole thing.
So it would be like if you operated a business without getting a special permit. from the town, you could be fined $250.
It could be a class 4 misdemeanor.
Right, and that's
Which to me, it
common.
The fine is not my issue.
Yeah.
The issue is, we made
Class 4.
a class 4 criminal record. You apply for a job,
Well, but
Okay, a class
they
4,
usually ask for felony.
it's the smallest misdemeanor. It's
Yes.
not the biggest misdemeanor.
but
it's a
we're not talking
misdemeanor.
about, we've taken the parking thing out. We're gonna redo that. We're not talking about getting, I don't know what class 4 misdemeanor.
Okay.
It applies to the whole section. If somebody's, operating a business without a license and doing something, that's a class 4 misdemeanor. I would want that. Should be on here. The guys that violate the law, you have a record, but so is a parking ticket. It's on your record, which is 3 or 4 years.
No, parking ticket doesn't go in.
No, I'm
Moving
speeding
violation-
ticket.
moving violations.
Yeah, points, yeah. So I don't know, we got some, I mean, this is,
We have still work to do on
this is the existing, the penalties are existing now, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't changed it.
I know, we also have it for parking for same thing as a class 4 misdemeanor. If I get a ticket for parking for.
I don't think it's a class 4.
So actually, a question, just as far as the outline,
Where are you?
on that page 8, the penalties. We're talking about it as if the penalties apply to anything in the whole B1 section, but there's not, it's not clear whether that penalties applies to the whole B1 section or
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
to
you're
parking.
right. You're
Because I
right.
didn't
So if I
read
put
that.
that as 38,156 penalties,
Yeah,
that would, okay.
And when we do the parking, we'll have a.
157, you put in noise emitter is 156.
Yeah, have the number.
or whatever,
Yeah,
but that,
the number.
the penalties will get its own number to make it clear.
Correct, and
that
it'll be the
it's
last.
broad.
Were there no penalties in the previous codes? This is
Correct.
9-year flat,
Correct.
although we were following the Virginia misdemeanor code.
Any other questions on these one?
Excuse me, Joy made a very good point just now. I'm just wondering why all of a sudden we're putting this in here and it was never there before.
It's actually in the code at the very beginning to say any ordinance that doesn't have direct enforcement or any direct penalty named, it uses that language. So it's in there in total. Now we're just trying to make it specific so that when we print each ordinance, it
Tell me
has,
again where it is.
it's in the general section. Basically says any area that doesn't have a specific penalty listed, this is the class 4 misdemeanor penalty up to $250. And that's been existing code for,
Okay.
All right. So how do we want to proceed with this P1? We want to vote on this, or we got a lot of changes?
So we're saying that what we're considering is what's written here minus the parking part and with the intent to add a section about noise and odor.
yes, if you want to vote on it without seeing the noise and odor.
The noise and-
Yeah, we don't, the public hasn't seen it, so,
Yeah. That's the public hearing.
yeah.
But we can vote on, we haven't made it more restrictive, we made it less restrictive on this stuff here. I don't think anything else would change this.
Well, we added meat and we
I
took
don't
out,
think that's.
no big deal. Okay.
Yeah, that's,
Okay. And taking.
Taking out stuff is not a problem.
yeah, that, there's nothing that's more restrictive, that's for sure.
The only thing would be the kind of market, but that's keeping it what it is now.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're going to strike the parking and the 3 or 4 things we outlined about word changes. And then we're going to talk about noise. Hopefully quickly down the road.
Yeah.
All right, so do I have a motion to accept?
I move that we accept the changes in ordinance to B1 as we've identified with corrections.
I can't.
Opposed? Somebody talking?
Can you mute them?
They have to mute.
Oh.
Oh, we can mute them?
All righty.
Is there something-
I've got it.
Everybody?
John Holt.
I'll get him. Again.
All righty, okay, well, thank you. That was an hour to do that. All right, moving on to the next item is business waterfront. I don't think there's quite as many red sections in here, but there are. So do we want to take this up? We want to. All right. Okay, the business waterfront on page 9 is, there's very few pages, a couple pages on there. I'm not going to go through everything. There's not too many changes on the first page here. Boat ramp stock available to local. You can see that we've taken away bulk storage and freighting of petroleum. We've allowed public parking and restaurants as defined. And that, I don't think there's any real sticklers on that first page. Does anybody have any issues with that? Okay. We get to the second page, and we have a lot of special exemptions here. And they're pretty much listed. I guess I'm just gonna let.
So, okay, what am I understanding here on page 10, the top, that first line?
Yeah,
What does that mean?
residential use, so somebody could put a condominium down there or something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're permitting?
With a
That's
special use.
Oh, okay, special exceptions, so.
Special exception. There's some undeveloped property down there that, around 20, that somebody could want, on the other side of the fish house there. We're behind our public parking there.
Yeah.
There's some.
Those buildings can come down
Yeah,
and be
yeah.
replaced.
Right, yeah, right, yeah. There's other, mostly to the north, to the east of the fish
But you
house.
can buy, if someone bought the property and used it for residential, by special exception.
That's what's planned here, yes,
Okay,
that's what,
okay.
I'm not,
Okay,
it's up to us, yeah. And then hotels, inns, professional business offices, I guess if somebody put a residence down there, they could use a homestay.
Back to number 1, why are the boat buildings scratched out? We still have a boat building?
I think that's allowed under,
I think it's permitted use.
It's not permitted, so you don't need a special.
yeah, marine sales and marine services, I guess.
What number is that?
Well, that's 2, I guess you consider marine services.
Marine sales and services.
Marine repair. Yeah, I think you could,
Waterborne commerce, including docks for receipt, temporary storage.
yeah. There's a lot of areas where that. Libraries and then,
Number 8, is that similarly something that would
Yeah.
avoid going to the zoning?
yeah, I think that's the same kind of thing.
Scratch
So we
that.
would
All right.
scratch that?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, does anybody have any other questions about anything in there? I don't think.
so that number 8's coming out.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, if somebody wants to add another one, I like to just go through the planning commission. We're not stopping them from doing it, just making it another step. All right, and I guess the next page is the limits, is the more somewhat, we can talk about that. Okay, so there.
On page 11, the top one,
Yeah,
the hours. I have a suggested revision.
Yeah.
Non-retail operations may operate only between 7 AM and 5 PM on Monday through Friday, but not on federal holidays. And then I had a thought about, like Columbus Day and President's Day. Do we really want to make them close on those days?
Or Juneteenth.
You're saying may not operate. Or
I'm
may
flipping the
operate.
language
To
from
say
saying
may.
what's not permitted and getting all hairy in the knots of the logic to be what is.
And federal holidays is questionable. if you wanna do
And
that.
after I sent that, I realized that federal holidays may be may close them down on days when we didn't mean to do that.
And don't you think if you're saying that they may operate or before, I don't understand how you flipped it. Do it again, please.
Instead of saying they may not operate before 7 AM or after 5 PM, they may operate only between 7 and 5.
She just changed, this says they may not operate at these hours. She's saying they can operate it,
At those.
just reverse it.
Okay, but that's somebody who has a boat that goes out, a commercial, that go out for, 5 o'clock sale or dinner sale or something.
Well,
It sounds
right.
like you're limiting that operation too.
Well, I mean, there, if you have a crabber that leaves it on Gill Meadow that goes out at 5 AM, you're gonna stop that?
I mean,
I don't think you really can.
Well, how would
I
you
think-
define non-retail?
I think the thing that we were focusing on was the gravel.
Bulk storage and handling.
Yes.
but, you're saying one business, but then you're lumping everybody into that same no or yes, the same yes. But, someone who has a
Like
dinner
Ferry,
cruise
Tangier
out
Ferry, Tangier Ferry couldn't operate on the weekends.
Or holidays.
or holidays.
I think they want to have a ferry on the
Yeah.
And holidays and weekends.
But that could be arguably retail. Anyway, so.
And that's why I said, what would be an example of non-retail? That would operate out of. the-
Gravel.
Gravel.
Yeah, grain operations.
Yeah.
Oh, it's wholesale.
You can't go by there and buy
That's
gravel.
Industrial? Is industrial a word to be in there?
Industrial operations.
Yeah.
That's pretty big. I
Could
don't
you
know.
just say with the exception of marine traffic?
Retail operations may not operate before 7 AM.
Say again,
Could
Jim.
you just say with the exception of marine traffic?
Like waterborne commerce is available by right, so, a crabber is by right.
No.
You said a crabber is by right?
Yeah, it's waterborne commerce.
Yeah, but so is gravel operation is by
Yeah,
right. So
right.
they're not, really, this is a separate thing here. It's outside of what's allowed. This is limitations to protect. I understand,
Is this limitation for just future business?
Yes, yeah, everybody else is
Existing businesses.
It's not gonna change anything. Yeah, make that clear. Yeah,
Right, it's not gonna change anything.
that's
existing.
anything existing. It's not gonna put anybody out of business or anything down there. They're gonna operate as their grandfather.
Yeah, because if you go back to A, we added, as determined by a 2/3 majority of property owners within 1,000 feet of the operation. That's not current code. That's, we will adopt the code, but can we apply that code to existing businesses?
No.
Nope,
Well, I don't know. I don't think so.
nope, and only if
Why do you say no?
because it's grandfathered, because you permitted that when you gave a business license, you said yes to everything
I
that
think
was
we
in
need a
code.
legal interpretation of that.
Our lawyers have said that,
Thank you.
they're grandfathered into the code that was written at the time they began their business.
This is not the first time this has
No.
come up. This is,
Well, I think it's also Hayden had a point about the 1,000 feet. I mean, that's way over the Mount Prospect.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing we said we could change, and then,
Yeah.
I can change that to 300 feet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
The
it-
average parcel width down there,
it's
a couple hundred
300
feet.
feet would be how many lots?
Be probably two parcels, two houses.
2 houses?
I mean, honestly, I don't hear anything at my house that we never heard the gravel operation. Like we do in the distance, but it's not a.
So, putting in 300 or 400 feet would take it over to Market Street. So anybody in any of the homes on Market Street would be part of this. Same thing with, I think you would probably be either the end or close to the end of the 300 foot. But that would be about it.
Do you hear any noise at your house?
No, I didn't.
You should present.
Can I suggest that maybe we strike C, since that's kind of problematic, and try to put in what we're really trying to do, which is restricting the truck traffic to certain times, as well as the noise levels?
Well, it's not just the trucks, it's also the loading and unloading ratio.
And once they cross the curb onto the VDOT street, I can't monitor or police that.
And once you unfriendly this business out of town, you don't have to worry about it.
Well, can't you say something
Because
like,
this is all grandfathered.
right, yeah.
So whatever they're doing now, you're just
not-
saying,
it's not
you're
about
thumbing
them,
your nose
though.
at this business unnecessarily
What do you
because it
do
goes
if
out.
Purdue Ag decides to buy the parcel next to Cheney
Okay,
and we don't have this in place?
okay.
Well, can we say
We're
something like?
stuck.
You're stuck and their grandfather to what's current, which has no restrictions. That's why we're doing this, is to make sure we protect that piece of property from transitioning to a
Okay.
new owner who,
What we
Could-
want
it
our
could be
work to
awful.
be.
yeah,
Exactly.
Okay,
that's the reason we're doing it.
can we say something about handling of bulk materials? That, can that be certain hours? Or, I don't know.
We could say equipment operation.
Well, that's a boat's a piece of equipment. I mean, I don't know.
Well, letter F is very restrictive. You're saying that you've got to have this whole operation enclosed.
For loading and unloading? Yeah, that was the purpose of that was to mitigate dust if,
Right.
How
are you gonna enclose a barge?
well, actually, the barges that hauled the grain, they actually showed to me, and it is a closed system with between the truck, the bottom of the truck, when it popped out to the hopper and went up into a enclosed barge. So that they currently do that. We're trying to protect, like I say, the next owner of that property from creating something that's causing our current problems and worries. That's really what we're trying to do, is it's for the next folks. And I have that grain operation in my head because I think that would be a real problem.
Well, back to C, how do we want that to read? Because we've said federal holidays are problematic, so is it only between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday or weekends? Or do we don't want them operating weekends?
We don't want them operating weekends.
Right, so it's
Or-
basically weekdays.
So if the barge comes in on Friday, it sits until Monday, is that the case? I'm just asking.
In a perfect world, yeah, because the residents that are right across the street,
And 30 cubic yards per day, you measure by going
It's
out
about
there, putting a
4.
weigh station,
well, that's about 4 dump trucks
1 to 3.
per day.
and you're gonna
Yeah.
monitor how many go up and down. Now, the other question I had was the route that they take, I've seen them going up North Street. So I don't know what the deal is and where they were going, but those big trucks were going up North Street as well as Market Street. I'm just
We can't stop them.
wondering.
I can't,
just- I'm just-
once
we
they're on
can't
a
stop
VDOT
that.
street, I have no
They're on,
authority.
they're on VDOT streets, but I'm also saying, how do you, why put these restrictions in place if you can't monitor 30 cubic feet, 30 cubic yards per day?
Well, let's get back to C. We haven't overcome C. Let's get language on C, or are we just spinning our wheels here?
Or is the handling of bulk materials specific enough to target what we're trying to target without cutting out other things unintentionally?
Like, what could be an unintended consequence?
Well, I mean,
You don't want to.
we said non-retail, so then we said, well, wait a minute, what about the other things?
Commercial fishermen.
Commercial fishermen, Tangier Ferry, whatever. So is handling of bulk
Just put
material.
excluding water, watermen or professional watermen, fisher, that type of thing. I'm wondering if we can sit there and say non-retail excluding our watermen. And that would,
I think what you were saying was more to the point of putting in what you bulk handling would cover what you're trying to do here, rather than trying to say who is allowed.
Or if, but on the other hand, I mean, we didn't foresee the grain thing, is what's the next unforeseen thing
right.
that?
What else comes in by bulk?
I said I like industrial, I'm not sure who said that, but
Okay.
industrial distribution and or wholesale, something along those lines.
Like the seafood industry?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
But it'd only be things that would be coming in by barge.
But I'm thinking of what would,
We're going out.
Well, there's nothing to stop them from coming in store, store into gravel, store.
That's commercial, that's waterborne.
Well, so it's
Oh.
gravel.
Okay, I'm confused, because I thought the waterborne was already permitted.
Right, so the
Yeah.
either you're seafood or crabbing or waterman,
So the
that's
hours,
permitted.
the hour, just wondering when they can do it.
What hours they can operate.
But
Anybody or
Except by special
Just
use.
industrial.
Well, just industrial.
industrial.
Is that a definite industrial, is Fish House industrial?
I think what you can do is in the definition section of this code, you just define what industrial means.
Right, yeah, okay.
No,
Okay,
may I make a little suggestion? If Cheney is going to be allowed to continue operations because they're grandfathered in, and we can't change what they do, why can't this ordinance just simply say that no bulk handling of material is allowed at the Onancock Wharf except by special use permit? And then if Purdue or whoever it is comes along, they have to apply for a permit, and at that point, you can hit them with whatever restrictions you could, because then they can be appropriate to whatever these people claim they're gonna do. Because you could have some other bulk guy, maybe somebody wants to handle, I don't know, all those railroad ties that have been sitting out beside the railroad track. And that would be a different issue completely from grain. So wouldn't that solve it? Because it wouldn't affect your current operation at all,
except our
waterman or
crabbers
anything
and
else.
oysters.
But it would mean if somebody new shows up, you got them.
But I'm not sure we then have a basis to deny a permit if we haven't spelled out what's allowable and what's not.
Well, within limits, but you still have, in a special use permit, I thought you had a right to put in
Hours.
various restrictions as
Then
you
it
go.
becomes subjective, doesn't it, rather than objective, if you say that, I mean, that's, I don't like you, so I'm not gonna give you the permit.
No, I don't think, well, I don't think you can do that, but can't you do that with any of them?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Absolutely,
And doesn't it happen?
special use,
Well, we've been fortunate, we haven't denied anybody because, yeah, I mean, it's been pretty good research, yeah. We get sued, you can get sued too, connect that, yeah. I think that's a good.
so you're suggesting we use what words, Sarah?
We just say no
Bulk,
bulk handling of materials is
Without a
allowed
special use permit.
without a
Sarah
special
was
use
saying
permit.
Anyway, about the bulk,
And you could list other stuff if you wanted to that isn't allowed either. I mean, marine repair, if somebody came along and said they wanted to start fixing boats and that kind of stuff, you might not be very happy with that either, actually. Once they get one of those lifts in there, I mean, and that thing that's in Cape Charles, of course, we don't have the rope for it, but that concrete plant, people get really upset about that. It makes an incredible racket. It has huge, heavy machinery rolling around. So
you're basically talking about striking all this thing off.
Well,
Yeah, try not to get into the details of what they can and can't do until you have an actual candidate in front of you.
So add one, so can we do that? Can we add a new number 8 in place of the number 8 we removed on special exceptions, or does that require another public hearing?
and then Matt, you were gonna research this, the 50 decibels. that you come up with the different-
Yeah, I found ordinance from Chesapeake. And like I said, it's long, but it came up with a table. Hard to read, but it goes through residential decibels. The right column is the one that would pertain to us. So residential has got it at 70 and commercial has it at 75. Agricultural also at 75. So it seemed like an industrial limit that had been researched by Chesapeake. 75 seems to be a reasonable number. That's the extent of my research. So. But if anybody wants to read a noise ordinance, this thing's intense.
We'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
And you've suggested 50 decibels anyway, which would be lower than that.
It would. So if we upped it to 75, I think that seems to be consistent with what somebody else already did and researched.
Yeah, I think we gotta look up the sound ordinance, a dishwasher and a washing machine and it was a 75 decibel or something like that.
What, a wash machine or something?
Yeah.
70.
70,
I
yeah.
think it needs to at least be that high.
Huh?
It needs to at least be that high then.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think people want to have wash machines.
yeah.
50 is a
Well,
room
it's-
You
conversation.
can't run it
Yeah.
outside.
It's way too
outside.
low.
Yeah.
Still.
But that's- wait a minute,
What
that's
about a
standing
grass
next to the
cutter?
washing
What's a grass
machine.
cutter?
You're not gonna have a washing machine sitting on the edge of the property. It's gonna be, it's gonna be, we're talking about on the edge, I can't hear your washing machine in my house.
What's a grass cutter?
About that, a little higher.
I would think so. My grass cutter is a lot louder than my washing machine.
Yeah, that does go around outside, yeah. No, it's all subjective now.
Come on, chainsaw?
Chainsaw is much, that's the problem, that's high.
So on page 11, are we just
We don't get
striking
too
all of
restricted.
that for now? Or what are we doing?
Yes, that's the, well, we're not sure what we're doing. Yeah. We need to get back to it.
Okay, so.
Okay.
We were talking about, one proposal was to strike all that and split waterborne commerce by special use permit. And that takes care of everything. And then we can put restrictions on whatever they want to do at the special use time. That's a proposal.
Because once we know what it is that we're talking about, what the business might be or is, then you know what restrictions you can apply. So if you just do the blanket,
Right. I think that's a suggestion.
I think you need legal help with this. I don't think that you're have the, this is important zoning thing, and I really appreciate all your efforts, but you're not, I just think there needs to be some legal representation to say
it all goes back to legal.
Well, I don't
what
think we're gonna
your,
resolve this
you have a
tonight.
goal, and I'm not quite clear on your goal. I know what my goal is because I live right there, but I don't know what the town's goal is. But I think if you presented a goal and had a lawyer who specializes in this, they would give you the language you need. And then there couldn't be somebody that gets around it. Like, what if you do this and then,
That's how it's done. That you're talking about the normal procedure.
why aren't we following it?
Because we have to come up with something to give the lawyer for him to
I see.
peruse.
Okay, sorry.
Well, I think the lawyers looked at this,
Well-
right or not?
The lawyer's the one that gave the idea about the loading and monitoring it by, how many yards per day, because we can't monitor what goes onto our roads, but we can monitor the amount that is handled.
Right.
That's where all of this came from.
Well, if we go back to the lawyer and say, look, can we handle all this through a special use permit? Would be a good idea to get his opinion on that, whether he thinks that's gonna work or not, and get.
I like the idea of being able to do it. My only question would be exposing the town for inconsistently
Yeah, that's
issuing
what-
special use permits. If
That's
we
what I
haven't-
would talk to you
Right,
about.
so if we say, any waterborne commerce needs to get approved, and we come in and say, well, we don't like your barge, but we have a barge right behind it, I think that's problematic.
Well, I agree with you. That's why I'd like to have a lawyer look at that, yeah.
But we need a lawyer.
Well, we have, I mean,
We still hire.
We haven't hired a lawyer yet.
No,
We'll-
we hire-
No, you haven't.
we would use, some
We do pay
kind
for
of
use.
power.
Yeah, I could get PNC to look at it, because they're the ones that gave me the first glance
So
on
what's
that.
the council's wish on this? Do you want to look, explore that
What does
option?
PNC charges by
Yes.
issue, I mean, we pay
Charge
certain
us by minute.
in blood.
Yeah.
Well, I can't imagine it's gonna take that long. Is anybody have any issues with that? So looking into that, or we wanna,
Are we talking about just section 3810 that they would look at, or the whole?
Oh, I would let them just look at the whole thing's 2 pages, 3 pages
Yeah.
long.
Okay.
The waterfront district.
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I think everything is, I think, we struck out a couple things already. We can take those out, but
So
yeah.
we're gonna table this, okay?
Is that all right with everybody?
And is everybody in agreement with changing that 50 decibel
Yeah.
at the edge to 75?
And then we're
In the
gonna,
1,000 feet. or the
to 350, 400, something like that.
we're gonna take out like 8, okay. All righty, is that okay with everybody? We don't,
Considering the time, yes.
yeah, we don't need to vote on that. All right, okay.
Tabling that?
Wonder lawyer.
All right. Any, we don't need, public comments coming up. All right, review and approve bid to Mertech for bulkhead project. Hopefully this will be pretty quick. Matt, please.
Yeah, we went to public bid. We got 4 companies that expressed interest in the invitation to bid. We had 1 pull out because they didn't believe that they could build it as drawn. And then we actually only had 1 vendor reply with the bid, the bid number as presented with the ad alternate plus the architectural and whatnot comes to total project cost with a contingency of about $325,000. We've secured funding of $327,244. And that includes with a 325 contingency of $40,000. So we've got the funding, we've got adequate, and we've worked with Mertech before. They've worked with our engineer and with us before. They know the existing conditions, especially at the bottom of that ramp where, 20 years ago, we thought we solved the problem by pouring concrete down there. So they're aware of all of those things. My strong recommendation is that you allow me to write an award letter to Mertech tomorrow morning. They won't, let me just be one more thing. They will not begin work prior to October 1 as per the contract so that we're not disrupting our voting season.
And how long do they predict it will take?
The contract says it's got to be less than 90 days.
And is there a penalty if it exceeds 90
No.
days? So if it exceeds 90 days, it's just tough luck.
Yeah.
Still have some more time before voting season starts.
Yeah,
That's
I do.
January. Why did that one person better pull out for technical reasons? What were the technical reasons?
There are anchoring systems that were spec'd out as part of the drawings, and one of them requires that it be driven from the bulkhead on the exterior down angle underneath where the harbor master house is. And they didn't believe that they could do that because it also called for compaction between the bulkhead and the piling. And they didn't see how they could possibly compact that and drill between.
So they were saying that the specs that you're presenting, they did not feel would work.
They didn't, no, that's not what I said. They didn't think they could do it.
Okay.
Mertech is, signed off on the contract on the same drawings. They know exactly.
And saying they can.
So my question about that, because it's the same people and you said the same builders and you said the same engineer.
Yep.
Where we had the problem with the top of the ramp.
Yep.
Do we have confidence that they will build it as drawn this time?
Yeah, I mean, that's the entire concept was they did it, the engineer came out, said that's not the drawing, and they tore it up and fixed it to be as drawn.
Yeah, but can we get measure twice, cut once this time? I'm hoping.
That costs them a lot of money to come back and fix that problem, so I would imagine they don't want to make mistakes either.
Okay. Couple of things on the page, eastern shore post in the top paragraph, last line. Not eastern.
Oh, thank you.
And in the conclusion, just above the motion.
Yeah.
Right, and award letter.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, do we have a motion to accept the bid from Mertech?
Mr. Mayor, I move that the town manager notify Mertech Corporation incorporated be a letter of award to proceed with this project as detailed in the invitation for bid 2022-01.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Good. Get that going. All right. E, Hancock Main Street Agreement. We need to,
Yeah, this agreement came, it would be a change in what we currently budgeted, which is why I brought it before you. To be very clear, I'm supportive of this contract. I don't have any issue with it, but I just wanted it to be clear. We budgeted for a flat $15,000. If we did 75% of the tot, it could cost us as much as $6,200 additional money if we hit the budget. Now, what I will say is right now, this far into the year, the transient occupancy tax budget is not, it's not going to hit budget so far this year, so it might be light. So this contract would be 75% of what we sell or what we collect in tot. I don't believe that we're going to, at least at this point, based on what I'm seeing, I don't believe that we're going to hit budget. So it'll be a little bit less than the 6,200. Sort of why I'm bringing that up is it could cost anywhere between $0 and $6,200 if we do the 75%. That's why I did that.
With all due respect, we have an agreement from 2020 that the town committed to the, and I've got the wording right here that was mailed from the mayor to the previous president. So this is following the commitment that the town council made.
yeah, I didn't think this was a change either. I thought we agreed that they would get.
We've not seen this that she's talking about.
Let me,
But this is what we started on about. Mavis was the one that suggested we go to the combination.
Well,
yeah.
We did
If,
meals, this is kind of meals house.
This was accompanying this. This was the resolution that the town put into effect in February 2020, and that is the letter that was sent.
Want to see copies or just take her? I'm happy to make
Could you just
copies.
read it to us?
Sure, it says to Ms. Johnson, this letter is confirmed. the
Yeah, this is John.
Barbara Johnson.
Okay, thank you.
This letter is to confirm the town of Hancock is in partnership and enthusiastically supports the efforts of the Hancock Main Street Initiative. Demonstrate the support the town council has proposed that beginning with the 2021 budget cycle, 75% of the transient occupancy tax collected by the town, be paid to Main Street. Historically, top revenue is in excess of $24,000. The budget decision is in addition to the $15,000 funded to Main Street by the town in 2019-2020. The budget also includes a commitment from the town for the financial support of the Main Street program, which will continue at least meet the level of funding provided in the 2019-2020 budget. The town of Hancock also continued the in-kind support of the personnel, data gathering, et cetera. Sign the mayor.
And that 75% is if you don't reach that, you just, if it doesn't get to the 15,000, you just do the 75%.
The way I read it was a 15,000 base, and over that
committed.
would be that. I mean, the other thing is, I'm not sure that this commits future council from.
I'm just saying that's what the agreement was.
Right.
It's not a change. That's what I'm just correcting.
Okay.
What do you mean it doesn't fit future council?
This letter wouldn't contract for future.
Yeah, we can't, yeah.
This is a new.
Right, it doesn't commit future.
We have to pass resolution every year, but it's not a change. That's why I'm just saying, it's the same as they've always, they didn't get it.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Okay.
So we're not talking about huge amounts, we're talking about, like I said, anywhere from $0 to $6,000.
And that would be at the very most. I mean,
Right,
like
yeah.
I say, the numbers are weak so far.
Yeah, we're
so
not
I don't
talking
think
about
this-
large amounts of money here.
Actually, Matt, I think we exceeded our budget. We've been collected, since we're at the end of fiscal year, right? 26,000 and we budgeted 24%.
Right.
We did good.
Yeah.
We even did good during the.
I'm happy to answer questions, which is why I went ahead and stood up here.
Yeah, so I think the money thing was the only thing.
Yeah.
Actually, we misstated in last year's document, I accidentally put in 85%. We never went for it, but I was, realized I was incorrect, that it had been an agreement of 75%. So,
We're happy with that.
yeah. So when Matt said it was a correction, I was like, yeah.
I have a question, Janet. What is DD?
Downtown district.
That's what I wondered.
Yeah, I would say for that and for TOT, the first time that those abbreviations get mentioned, they should be, the word should be given.
It is at the top of
Few
the.
sentences.
She's got DDA, and then she's got downtown district.
Under disagree.
Okay, but TOT is not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know what time it is.
Tax on transient.
Yeah, I know. All right. So
I thought it was temporary occupancy tax, so they.
We just trying to make sure that's very clearly stated this year because it just felt like it wasn't as easy to understand.
Just so I understand. 15,000 will be allocated yearly unless this is amended by both parties, basically. And then 75% of the transient occupancy tax in addition.
So,
whichever
I'm
is
sorry,
greater.
Joyce, so basically, we're guaranteed 15,000
Yes.
from the town's coffers.
Right.
And if the transient, if 75% of the transient occupancy tax takes you over 15,000, let's say takes you to 16,000, you give us an extra 1,000 at the end of the year. That's all. We get-
75% over 15,000.
Yeah, we don't get the whole, they don't get the whole transient occupancy and the
No,
15, yeah.
Right, so
They just get the 15
we know
plus
we need to have some way to know what our operating funds are, so we know we have $15,000 of support every year from the town, as long as you re-ratify this every
The
year.
15's in the TOT if they get that, yeah. So whichever is correct material.
Which is coming from TOT, and then
Yeah.
if the TOT generates more, if 75% of the TOT, because 25% is already going to your ESBA tourism. So if 75% of the TOT is over 15,000, at the end of your fiscal year, we would receive whatever it's over the 15,000.
And we'd have to ratify this, changes every year, right? So you don't, we're not combining the town, next council, or anything more.
And I would like to point out, it's just in the Eastern Shore Post issue on Friday that where we announced that we had made the National Main Street designation, that for every $1 that the town gives us in support, it's worth $20. So $15,000 equals $385,000 that we're generating for the town from the 15,000 you give us. So I wouldn't think that, I think we're earning our keep. Let me put it that way.
All right, so
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions on it? We have a motion to approve this resolution or what?
Yeah, you can just administratively tell me to sign the contract,
Okay,
and we can move on.
Okay, all right. Does anybody have any problem with it? Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, facade grant. Matt Gibson.
Really what I had sent out was the town council had appropriated or has appropriated $90,000 in order to issue facade grants to Hancock businesses. So I put a purpose statement together. But really the whole thing comes down to who is going to sit on the group to form the specifics about what the grant terms are, what the requirements are, what the qualifications are, all of that type of thing. So when I sent it, I think I said somebody from OBCA, somebody from Main Street, obviously somebody from council and me could go through and define what the grant will look like. I put an idea together, but again, those were just starting points for conversation. They weren't anything other than that.
How big are, what did we have for the group that administered the other grant? Was that 3 or 4 people in there or something?
For the small business recovery or for the, when we did the first small business recovery, it was three people plus me.
we don't want 10 people on this thing. We want, what, 4 or something like that. Is that good?
And I think I had suggested that we ask ANPDC instead of OBCA because they have expertise in buildings and I'm sure facade improvements could fall into their bailiwick much more so than OBCA, which is primarily events. And I don't really see the nexus for the involvement with business facade grants.
OBCA's concern is that representing the businesses in the town. They're not just an events organization. They do a lot of events that attract people to town and for businesses, but they are the representative as a body for businesses. And I think
They
it's,
don't have many business members, really. It's primarily a civic organization, primarily. I don't think there are that
Perhaps.
many businesses who are members.
I don't
With
know.
You just, yeah.
For the last
Simone
2
is a
years, there's been
disagree.
more
I think
business
it's-
members than civic.
Sorry?
For the last 2 years, there have been more business members than civic in OBCA.
That depends on who shows up at the meetings, different numbers.
right, who shows at the meeting, but who the organization represents are the businesses.
I
and that's
don't think
its
we should limit
primary-
this thing to different organizations. Let's pick some people that we need, we need to get, if we have good people, that let's, whether they're a member of OBCA or, Main Street or.
And then people are members of both.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think, that's, let's get some good people on here. Do we want to get some ideas about people and then they're gonna come up with a vision. I guess. You said you'd be interested in doing it for the council. Yeah.
Well, if you're on Main Street too.
She'd represent Main Street as well. yeah.
Well, there's a conflict of
That's conflict
interest.
of
Well,
interest.
Main Street's gonna be part,
No.
There's a conflict of interest.
Well, Main Street doesn't have a building, so they're not a conflict because they're not gonna
They're the
receive
one
the
that came up with
grant.
this idea. This
Who
is
are
their
you,
idea.
Jana, who do you want from Main Street on here?
Whichever of our
Well,
board
which
members
house
is
do you
willing to
wear?
I'm
volunteer.
sorry.
One of our board members would take a position. I would think that, I would suggest that it would be wise to get representatives from the business community more than from an organization that represents the business community. People that have a vested, that understand what the benefits are to working on the building facades, because it's a facade grant.
I think that's
This
a good
is,
point.
to
We-
just have clarity of purpose, as Matt's saying.
We allocated, distributed, allocated, I don't know how the correct terminology would be, when we were working on ARPA funds to Main Street, just as we distributed money to.
What?
No, Main Street requested that you all
Main
set
Street
aside
requested
funds for facade
Okay,
improvements,
right,
but it would benefit every business in town, B1 and B2.
right.
But that
Main
was just,
Street
that was just
requested
us
the money.
advocating. We're,
Yeah.
yeah. We would just
Just
be.
as the Domestic Violence Center requested money.
Yeah,
So,
but they requested it to be not just to give it to Main Street, they requested that the town administer it.
I asked that in the council meeting.
Yeah, and so then we want to form a committee, so we need some people on the committee, and I think you're right about a business person down.
You are conflicted.
So, I don't,
Somebody else said.
I don't see.
Unfortunately, probably nobody else volunteered.
Well,
And they come back to you.
The other issue that came up is if you want to apply for a grant yourself, you don't want to be on.
Yeah,
the
That's why the
That's correct.
business, that's why a business member's a little.
Well, that way you have to find
because
somebody.
They wouldn't be able to apply or, you
Apply.
know,
Yeah, I think it should be, the members shouldn't be, I mean, I could possibly, I've owned a couple facades, and I'm not.
yeah,
Right,
neither,
we
neither will I,
discussed that
Yeah, right, yeah,
you know, so.
Yeah.
yeah, because we want them. So I think we need to get some information about, we need about 4 people, that want
I
to.
nominate Sarah. She's willing to accept.
And then we need somebody from Main, we want somebody from Main Street.
It would be one of the members who doesn't own property in the business.
Right, and then some, I don't know about A, and then one other, somebody from business, can you find somebody? It might be somebody from OBCA or business. Yeah. All right, so if we want to, we look at 4 people, that's good. And they're gonna come back and give us, they're not gonna just do that in their factory. And did you want,
I'll give it a crack. One thing I would say again with the acronyms, I looked up what SWAM ownership is in the next to the bottom bullet point.
Oh, sorry.
Small women and minority owned. But
Sorry about that.
small comma, women, comma, or minority dash owned.
After the reading
Small
about
women.
and or small business.
Women.
all right,
Anyway.
Right.
so what do you, how far do we want to get some, form the committee next time, or do you want to, is there a time, are we crunch for this or not?
I don't, the only reason that I would say there's a little bit of a crunch time is we need to encumber the funds, and if we don't even know what the grant looks like,
Right.
I think we could do it. So Debbie's gonna be the staff representative on this. You've got council. Can I just send an email
Yeah.
once I ask a few people in town?
Right, and then Main Street will give you a person's name.
Because I have an idea of somebody we all know and love who wouldn't be personally impacted.
Okay,
Who's got a great
okay,
background.
all right. And then we'll, okay, and then when the next meeting, we'll come to the money. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Well, they meet and then go from there.
Yeah,
All right. Okay,
great, thanks.
all right, security cameras.
Oh, man, full agenda. Whose idea was this anyway? All right, it's not bad, it's not bad. So Chief and I researched 4 different vendors. The first vendor is the current provider for Accomack cameras. Most of those are up on lights around the county. The other vendor is a local provider that we currently use and has put our cameras in. If you look up there's one there. The other vendor was our current IT provider. They have an arm of their business that does this. And then the last vendor is the one that we're recommending. I say we because Chief and I have been working hard together on all of this. We didn't select the first vendor, the one that the county currently uses, because it's called Verkada, it's the name of the company, and they're like Apple in that their hardware and their software are proprietary to itself. So you can't interchange. We can't use our current systems. They won't plug into it. If I get another camera, I have to get their camera. So I'm really locked into this one company. The price was very consistent with the company that we're going to be recommending. So we moved that to the side. The other vendor are local folks, great people, but they just simply don't have the technology to do the kind of system that we were looking at. The one with our IT company would have been very problematic if they couldn't do some of the connectivity issues. Because if you think about where we have each of these cameras positioned in this preliminary design, we don't own all of those buildings. So there's some that are on poles that are, over on Hill Street by Liberty. We would be able to put power on the pole, but we would still need internet connectivity. This company has a little transponder. It's called but it goes on there and you just put like a little SIM card into the system and it does up and download. The up and download speed is more than adequate on our system. So because we've got Verizon Power, we've got good connectivity, we've got power on the poles. So we were able to put together a security system that I think Chief and I are both comfortable with. The design that you saw is right now, it's quite frankly, it's a lot of our properties. It's our parking lots, it's our buildings, it's the wharf, it's pointing towards the playgrounds, that type of thing. The way I would consider that is that the next phase would be more common area pointing toward or pointing down Market Street, for example, that type of thing. So getting the infrastructure in place to make sure that, the front of the town hall, the back parking lots, the playgrounds, the wharf, that type of thing, those places are covered. That seemed to be the first area that we wanted to focus on. The other piece of technology that works well, and given that we only have 3 spots to get in and out of town, is the license plate recognition cameras. And what those do is they can identify a plate number and bring up an immediate picture of the registrant. So if chief has an issue where somebody leaves town at midnight, he can then go to that, see the video camera, pull the plate, do all that type of thing. So there's other small functionality with those license plate readers, but really this is about making sure that people who come in or leave town, we can identify them. This recording allows for virtually unlimited amounts of data storage. And the searchability of these cameras, this is where it's called analytics, where you can put search criteria in and it works. It's the craziest thing. I wore a blue shirt and walked down by the wharf, and they typed in blue shirt and it brought up 4 places around town where we had their cameras positioned, and it was able to just bring up the people with the blue shirt. So any kind of ID that they have that way, they don't have to sit in front of a video camera and start scrolling minute by minute by minute. They can actually use those analytics to help them more efficiently. Also, the cameras themselves produce evidentiary quality video. So they'll be able to record people and actually use it to both identify them and prosecute them. So the quality of the video, the connectivity issues, the ability to expand on the product, all of those things are the reason that we recommend AVA as the solution. So obviously this is an expensive solution. We're looking at, because the numbers are bouncing around a little bit, I think $140,000 is a very safe number. The raw quote came in $101,000, but we have to put electric on the poles and we've got to rent a lift and things like that. So it's got a good, healthy contingency in there. If we want to add something, we can. The way that we would pay for it, in my opinion, and this is obviously up to you folks, would be, we've got $100,000 dedicated right now for the GIS of the water system. When we put that originally, I talked to an engineering firm and they were going to go out and hand mark our entire water distribution system. That's why it was so expensive. I was able to talk with HRSD and they took our most recent system drawings and were able to scan it into this format for nothing. So I don't have to pay an engineer. I didn't have to do that, and I've already got the file. The other thing is I didn't know this until I was asking around, but the county ACAMAP, the one I'm talking about, okay, those tax parcels are all downloadable in GIS format. So within, no cost and within a few minutes, we were able to get all of the tax parcels and all of our water distribution system. The next part of the project would be kind of as we go. I know that sounds silly, but Victor goes out and does meter readings. There's a tool that's just a GPS locator that when he stands on a meter, he can just sit there and type in meter. And then when he gets back to the office, it uploads and connects everything and redraws it. So the software itself is incredibly inexpensive. It's an annual subscription because we're so small. It's like $1,500. So the $1,500 plus the one piece of equipment that Victor needs is really about the extent of what we're going to need for that GIS, which leaves $85,000 left of that appropriated money. The next one that I would look at would be the valve replacement. When we put that budget together, the reason we put it together the way we did was because we were having all those water main repairs, and we were doing that. We'd go turn one off and it would shut off all of downtown because it wasn't labeled. Then the next one, you go over and start turning it, and it was either frozen or it was spinning. So we had those issues. So when I was talking with, remember Dean, he worked here for 30 years. I was talking with Dean about this project. He said, Matt, really, if you do these one at a time, it'll cost you a couple $1,000s. We do them ourselves. It's not that big a deal. You don't need to go out and start adding water lines and new valves all over town. You just don't. So I could take the money off of that, do like a $10,000 set aside for some of the broken valves. And then we could rededicate those funds from the $65,000 that we have dedicated there to that. So with the $140,000 cost, we did allocate $10,000 for security because we were going to put security at the water tower anyway. Take that 10 plus the other amounts that we're not going to need for the GIS and the valve system. You can pay for the system that's been put in front of you at $140,000.
I've got a question.
All right.
I've got a question, Matt. How much are each additional camera? Should we choose to add one?
Yeah,
2 or 3?
they're under $3,000. That includes the SIM if we don't own the building. If we do own the building, like on Market Street, for example, if we were to put one up on top of 38, point it down toward the theater and another one down towards it, that type of thing, we wouldn't need internet, we wouldn't need power, we just need the cameras. So under 3,000 per but if we own it, it's well under 3,000 per.
Because I was kind of wondering if we should add some more behind the school.
Yeah.
It's a large area.
It's a tough area, though. The more I'm learning about these things, there's 3 different types of cameras. The best one for that situation is called a bullet camera, and it's a much more narrow field, and that narrow field gets a better picture, but it could go a little bit further. The lighting down there, that's where the problems come in. We talked about putting it up on the light pole that's right by the new sidewalk that goes down there to see that way, but that's actually got an internet problem. I put it on the building, I could use the internet inside the building and connect. I know that my original budget for the school was 5 cameras all along the back, the playground, and then underneath the front driveway. And the budget came back as it was just massive, so I had to start scaling it back. So if we were to add, that would be one of those things where a couple $1,000s, and we've already got internet, we've already got power.
Joni said this, I'd like to share. I believe that one on both back corners would be most beneficial. I heard they had a close to 360-degree range. While play area most important, there presently is some lighting in place on north side, whereas the south back corner could cover the darker side of property, leading to observation deck, back of field, soccer field, where I see cars drive in at night. Interesting. Plus the home ec cottage. The front is not needed. We just received a $4,700 estimate to repair, replace broken, and add 2 more dusk-to-dawn lights on fronts and sides. The importance for security is paramount in light of the past year of nefarious behaviors and unfortunate events. So maybe that sheds a little bit light. You said since it's town-owned, it would be less than 3,000, correct?
Yeah, I would have no, I mean, like I say, we can start to look at, well, why don't we do, North Street, Market Street intersection a little bit better?
Yeah.
Why don't we do, we can start those conversations. Those are easy, but putting it on a couple of intersections in town, I think are important.
I think that's why people were here last October was the downtown, the burglaries, and then we saw our burglary report in the East Ridgewood Post last week, and it's high compared to other communities. So some of the cameras downtown, but I'm not a camera expert by any means. I will certainly go with what the chief says, but was the dog park removed?
Yeah.
Because of
2 reasons. One is I don't have any lighting. I don't have any pole back there. And it's also a massive area. So I'm not exactly sure where, so.
I can't imagine there'd be a problem there with her.
Yeah, I mean, that's, Chief and I both agreed that.
Might be people hanging out, but what are they gonna do to a fence? It's not like
A
they-
fence or a cable.
I know,
Yeah,
can't
no,
imagine.
and that's gonna become part of the police patrol, so, I
Another acronym, LPR,
license plate reader.
It's actually up there.
It is defined.
Yeah, on the page right there. Oh, so it says license plat.
Yeah.
It says plate now, you corrected me,
Yeah.
I fixed it.
Okay, so one question in the where it is on, this is on handwritten page 19. At the top one, wharf, parking lot, floating dock, ramp, parking lot, floating docks, and inside all three spaces. What does the inside all three spaces?
Sorry, that it's in the cashier area, in the laundry room, and in the hallway out where the bathroom.
You already have
are.
those cameras there, right?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
what's
yes.
so cool about this system is there's only one analytic that you can't use with our current cameras. So we can plug them into their system, get all of the same search criteria, and the only thing they can't do is sound. Their cameras, if chief puts in that he wants to get a text message if there's breaking glass, if a window breaks, his phone goes off. So there's all kinds of, I mean, there's heat maps that they use, so you can tell if somebody, where people normally walk, it creates a heat path, so if somebody walks somewhere differently than that,
Right.
it can notify. I mean, it's really, it's a lot, but it's not more than a community needs, especially to keep it safe. And the better cameras, when lighting isn't as good, that's the issue, is none of these things take place at high noon,
No, we have 4 police officers, 5 coming on
Fifth tomorrow.
tomorrow. Do we have 24-hour police protection?
No, without 8 officers, you can't have 24/7. That's just because it's sick time, vacation time, personal time, but will be covered almost every normal hour. Let's put it that way.
It's the same.
Except for, in the middle of the night type of thing, we won't be there, but
Covered.
I trust the
Normal
chief, I
time.
trust the chief to staff his department, and I'm not gonna
We
get
don't
into
really
that.
advertise our one.
I don't think we really want to say what they're going to do. One last thing, then I'll drop it.
No, that's fine.
This has been a real interest of mine, and I suggest we get on it. When we were in negotiation with HRSD, it kept coming up that they were going to, and I don't know the correct terminology, they were going to buy us remote reader water meters. That is not going to happen. I
That is
assume.
absolutely gonna happen. It's in the contract.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So why do we
absolutely
need
happen.
this GIS for?
Well,
because that's not, the water system is not the sewer system. Water meters don't give you a map of what's there. So yes, we're replacing all of our water meters in town with remote read meters.
Right,
That that project will begin shortly after we close on the pump stations.
and
So
that's with HRSD.
Yeah.
So there's no margin of error.
Well, it's gonna take time just because, right now, a water meter's got a, what is it, 16-week lead time? Something like that. Just a regular old water meter. So, the world we're trying to do business in is taking a lot more time.
Okay, thank you.
any other questions about the security thing? All right, do we have a motion to accept the proposal?
So moved.
Second,
I second it.
discussion? All in
Thank you.
favor?
Aye,
All in favor?
thank you.
Aye. Aye.
And thanks to the chief.
Yeah, thank you. All
Yeah.
right,
Thanks, chief.
okay. Well, so what timeframe are we looking at?
He's been texting me the whole time. He had a couple of
8:25.
ideas about the water thing.
What timeframe are we looking at?
For this,
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, good question.
I'll tell you tomorrow. I'll call Brandon, who's the design guy, and let him know that we're a go.
So you'll send us an email tomorrow.
All right.
I'll send you an email when I hear back.
Okay, public business, we don't have any more public business, there's none. Public comment? Okay, whoever wants to go first. Fight over there.
Kathy Boyd, 5 Market Street. Thanks for all your hard work, council people and mayor and Matt. It's a daunting job, oh my goodness. I have interest in mosquito control. And I read the BioMist all decide information that Clark puts out. And one of the things that they say is that that the mosquito control programs maintain an open and transparent dialogue with their communities about the practice of mosquito control. So my experience is that I have no mosquitoes around my house, so it seems to be working, but that's anecdotal. I also know that the mosquito control truck comes around 3 times a week. And what I'm wondering is, are you collecting data about the effectiveness of the program? So I'm wondering, do we need it around 3 times a week to manage what data are we coming up with? And also about time of year. In the spring, it would seem because of reproduction, you would really need to damp down the mosquito population. I don't know if that's true, I'm not a scientist. And then maybe let up a little bit later on. But I think some hard data of our community is important because it is a poison, and so there's a cost benefit. We don't want to have dengue fever, and we want to be comfortable in our town, but it affects bees, it affects other bugs, it affects humans. It's poison. So the question is, do you have data?
Yeah, I do. First of all, the temperature needs to be an aggregate of 65 degrees before you start. This spring was cold. The reason we do 3 times a week through the first half of the summer is exactly why you say, because it's hot and that's when they're breeding. We're about to, next Monday, go down to 2 days a week, and then at the end of August, we'll go down to 1 day a week. And that's the same pattern that we've had for many years.
How many?
How long have we been doing mosquitoes?
Forever since I've been a kid.
Yeah. That's a long time. That's a long
Oh,
time.
it's just probably with the DDT and the big fog,
Yeah, so, and your comment about bees, I want to be very clear on that. The study and the information that Clark puts out is very clear that it does not harm hives. It simply does not. So that's the information. I'll share the article with you that shows the test that was done by an independent university that shows the impact of this specific mist on bee populations. But we care for that. And also we've got 2 beekeepers in town, and we don't spray near their homes at their request. So we do care deeply about that. But you're right, we don't have mosquitoes in town. And there's a
But are
reason.
you collecting data
What data?
about our town?
What data would I collect?
How many mosquitoes are around?
I'm not exactly
way, I
sure
think-
how,
Well, you
I'm
can
not
do
exactly
mosquito
sure how.
trap. You're right, you can do, there are field biologists to do that, but I don't know if we can, it's all anecdotal. I mean, I go to visit a friend's place out in the country, and you can get chewed up by mosquitoes, and in town, there are not as many. So we don't have a lot of marsh in town, so yeah, I don't know.
Well, it seemed to be a way to
It's all
test, like,
anecdotal.
are we doing too much? Are we doing enough?
Not according to Clark, and that's why we're slowing down now. So now that the season has moved a little bit further, on August 1st, we go for another 4 to 6 weeks, doing twice a week, depending on the temperature. And then we'll drop to once a week, probably till the end of September, and then we'll be finished.
The only data I found that pertains to what you're asking is 3 ounces per acre, but it didn't say how often. It didn't say once per acre,
Right. And
twice
that's
per
where-
acre, 3 times a week per acre. And that's what I think is the ask is.
I know.
The sprayer manufacturer and the chemical manufacturer are the 2 pieces of data that I can trust on how often to do and what spray, what's the mist level.
Well, I did
Well,
a,
they're selling this stuff.
Yeah, I
I'm
know,
not
I-
sure I'm
well, I
trust them.
I had a, I contacted a long time ago, I was curious about it too, because I'm a biology major, and I contacted the field, the experimental station, they have an entomologist down there, and he said you could get, you can get mosquito traps and count them, but who's gonna do that for you? It's fairly, you gotta hire somebody to count, and it's fairly technical to see if your spraying is more, how effective it is, but that's not something that a lot of people do. They can't, it is possible, but it's not easy.
So
Yeah, you
basically,
have
we
to
were
put the
doing
traps
it
around.
without data, we're just taking the company's word for it, that this is how much spray you need and how many times to apply it.
If we don't have mosquitoes, then we're doing it right.
Or too
Well,
much.
Oh, yeah, you could.
Yeah, we don't
yeah,
know if that's too much.
Good question. I don't know.
Because we haven't had it.
I don't know.
Anyway, a
I'm not
concern.
getting a very good. Yeah. All right, Janet?
I'm Janet Rochester, 39 King Street. I'm here to address the issue of increasing numbers of homestay properties in the town. I think we could reach a point where there are too many, to the detriment of the town and its residents. Homestay properties reduce the number of houses available for permanent residents. These are the people who work in and shop at the local stores, volunteer for civic and community activities, and in an abstract way, form the glue that holds the community together. If you know your neighbors, you can help out if needed, keep an eye open for things that go wrong, and cooperate in keeping properties in good shape. It is not the same when there are different people in the house every week. You have to presume that they are there legitimately, and almost every time they are, and there is no trouble. It's still disconcerting to see different people on the next door porch every week. I do not feel like feeling as if I am a stranger in my hometown. Homestay properties commercialize residential districts. People bought their homes thinking that they understood the neighborhood. Traditional B&Bs require that the owner be on the premises, thus preventing a person operating multiple units. Homestays has no such requirement, so neighbors may not even know who the owner is. Can an out-of-town owner keep proper track of what is going on in multiple properties? What happens to the value of neighboring houses on a street with several homestay properties? I know the value of tourism and having visitors to the town. I also know the value of having a vital residential community. I have been to the Outer Banks in November, and it's a creepy place. You can drive for miles and see houses at night and see houses, but very few have any lights on. I hope that we can find the right balance of homestay properties and residences. And I request that you move cautiously in approving more homestay properties until we see the impact of those that already exist.
Thank you. Any more public comment? All righty. Committee reports, personnel.
Personnel, we have completed the draft of the personnel policy. March 1st, Councilman Nicholson here. And we're waiting on, we thought it would be best to send it to the attorney and then bring it to council. You know, why would we sit here and work on a draft that the attorney's going to say? Because it's been, half of it was sent to the attorney and Rachel
Well, the
Heller.
parts we asked that she didn't comment on. too.
Yeah, but she did put in quite a few changes, you know, I mean, we're not personnel policy experts, so. I do have a statement of the personnel committee's statement of purpose. That is town policy, which I wasn't aware of.
This is existing.
Yes, adopted by previous council. So that might be something we want to look at and see if we agree, disagree, maybe put it on the future agenda. Consider it a nice thing.
Planning commission.
Well, next Monday's meeting is gonna have the, really the reason Mike Morgan came in earlier was that he's got an application to change the farmer's market sign out front of his place, the turquoise joint out there. Yeah, that one, okay. He wants to change that into residences, apartments.
Right.
It's not allowed in B2, so he's got the application for a permit, and that's gonna be going before the planning commission to talk about
Waterfront,
It couldn't have been a faster meeting, and we talked a little bit about Vertec and a little bit about why boat traffic was down this summer.
And what was your thinking? Yes.
A few different thoughts. Mostly, though, it seems like the fuel cost is having a negative impact. Not that we're without boats, but I think what's happening is people are saying, well, we normally do 3 trips a year. I'm only going to do 1, that type of thing. So we're down, but it's not catastrophic, and our fuel sales are consistent in gallons. So that was about it. A lot of anecdotal conversation.
I don't really have anything to report really. Do we get any applications for the town attorney?
No.
And town manager report?
Real quick, streets, Jackson Street is, I don't know if you went down and saw the new curbs and curb cuts and sidewalks, but they look great. Branscombe is finishing up their work on 13, nothing only, and then they're coming down to do the work on Jackson. They're estimating that they'll be here on Monday, weather depending. Holly Street, we all know that there's that stormwater or rainwater retention, so VDOT finished their study. And if you all know where Charlie Landis' driveway is,
Yes.
okay. There's a drainage pipe underneath that driveway that goes theoretically all the way back to the creek, and that appears to be plugged. Because it's not in the VDOT right away, that's our responsibility. So I'm asking Dale to meet me over there. He can walk me through it. I talked with Chris. He gave me the vendor that they use for storm drains. And I've got 2 on Parker Street that are also really clogged up bad with pine needles and things like that. So the street's flooding. So those storm drain issues are, they're getting done. Philip, our new police officer, starts tomorrow. HRSD, we're still waiting on the closing of the pump station. They're having problems finding clear title on a couple of the smaller stations. So as soon as they do that, we'll begin the projects for Jefferson Street and also for the meter replacement. Just as a sidebar, I mean, in the last month, we've had 3 of our 7 full-time employees come down with COVID with the isolation. That means that everybody's out for a week. So your patience with things is appreciated because it is, we're short-staffed. Quick ARPA updates. We have the fencing for the dog park. They said would be here in about 30 days, and then we'll be able to install it. So hopefully that project will be coming to close. We've got existing condition drawings on the public restrooms and welcome center. He's going to sketch out something for you guys to consider. Is that way we're editing and not creating. Northeast Park, we removed the unsafe equipment. We left the swings because those are going to outlive us all. We just need to actually buy swings, but the equipment itself is a beast. And we left the slide because it's in good shape, but it's metal. So I can't even imagine putting my backside on that thing on a day like today. So yeah. So but I've looked at playground equipment, similar to things that you see over at the school. Just coming up with a few things that are going to hit budget, and then I'm going to email out to the street captains that we worked with during the Northeast project to start them having them select it. And we're meeting with Billy over, once the young ladies come back. Does anybody hear how they did with the senior girls? They're in the championship against Florida.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, as soon as Billy gets back, we're going to sit down and do the walkthrough for the bathroom fixtures, and then start sketching out the path. I already have a design. I just need to work with him and kind of cost it out. So that's what I've
have
got.
a sketch of the inside of the building or the dimensions and
For the
plans?
inside?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got as is. So I can scan that and send it over. I mean, I was just gonna wait until he gave you a proposal for, here's where the bathrooms and centers could be, and then you guys could go through and do what you do.
I personally would like to see the inside as it currently exists. I don't know if anybody else would.
I could,
Yeah.
well, we could do two things. I'd happily will show you the drawings, or I can open the door and you could
We'd
walk
like to
through.
take a tour.
Yes,
Would you like to take a tour?
Yes, we
but
would.
not 3 hours.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, not a 3 hour tour. You don't want to be in there for 3 hours.
I think I'd be happy with an
Is the tenant
email.
gone? Is the tenant-
I will, what's that?
Is the tenant gone?
Yeah, he was gone July 1, I think
Okay.
it's his, he was. And he found a good home, and he's a super helpful person. He
Good.
helps us translate all of our Haitian folks who don't
Yeah,
speak
it
the
rented the
language,
building,
so.
but bought- it was in there before. All right,
Okay.
okay. All righty, yes.
Oh, hey, Beach.
I'm Peaches Dodge. I'll tell you. I live at 12 Meadville, and I'm the past president of the Eastern Shore Coalition Against Domestic Violence, which is one of the ARPA projects. And I wanted to thank you all that came to our open house. I hope you were pleased. We're really looking at completing it, just so you know where we are. The shelter piece we will have residents in there by the end of August, and maybe September 1. So we're really closing in on it. It's, we're very proud of it. I am very, very, very proud of it. It's a dream come true. It looks great. Once we really put clients in there, it's gonna be, sequestered and guarded, so to speak, with security systems and so on. So we won't be allowing people to take tours. If you haven't had a tour and you want one, call me. I will be happy to, I'm there all the time, not all the time, but in and out up there every day. But we're really pleased with the way it's coming. And we're going to be starting our second phase, which is the administrative building, which will be where the advocates and the counselors will be. So that's gonna sort of dovetail, as we do a punch list with the shelter. We'll be starting on the process of building the next piece, because right now we have advocates and clients, and they're all really, and our administrators, all in one building at 130 Market Street. And that's tense, because that's a very tiny little building, and we've got everybody in there, including all of our record keeping, et cetera. So we're trying to operate, but so my push is we gotta move as fast as we can. And I don't want to slow down. We've done pretty well in terms of supply chain, as you can see, but that's saying, oh, well, I don't really care what the exciting color is. Whatever you've got on the shelf is the color that will be, because that's the way we can get it done. That's been very important, because getting our clients out of the hotels where they're at risk. The hotels are not safe. I mean, you kind of go around with your heart in your throat, hoping that you're gonna not have incidences that will lead to some sort of real problem. So we've done this for several years, because since COVID, we've had to do it, but, it's all been push it, don't, make it work, make it functional, and make it now. So I'm still on that process. And I'm just saying that because we still have $50,000 that I will need to continue pushing us forward and getting us into that administrative building. The third building, really, we're not getting overly excited about, because we only know what we want to do with it yet. But those two buildings, we've got to get it. That'll make us functional really for the community. So I'm just telling you where we are. And I'm very pleased that we've been cooking along. If you consider that we bought it a year ago in August, and I can finish one building in a year, that's pretty good.
That's not pretty good, that's very good.
So there.
Yes, excellent. Beautiful too.
If you have any questions, I'm sorry, but call me if you want a tour. If you haven't
Yeah.
seen it, you should see it. It's
Yeah,
really
I do.
fantastic.
Yes, I think all of you got emailed the Main Street Now conference report that the mayor told you I would give you this month.
Yes.
He mentioned it,
Yes.
and you have your email. I'm not gonna, if you have questions and want to talk to me, please let me know. I'm not gonna read it to you.
There is VML training for town council members, and I'm not clear on the date. I'm sure you'll get information. I think it's in October. Councilmember Oswald and I attended that 4 years ago, and I think she could tell you, and I certainly can. It was extremely helpful. Very.
Well, that's for, for new council people.
No,
Anybody. can go,
Anybody,
but it-
anybody can go, yeah. There were, 1 year,
I've been
0 year.
twice,
Yeah.
several times. actually.
So that's one thing I want to mention. Plus, we didn't receive the ARPA or the town manager copy of your report, so if you could get those to us.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, and then it did come up that the community is not receiving emails about town council meetings, which I was so shocked because I sit here every month thinking, well, the community must not have any comment about what we're doing. I don't think the community knew, so I think that's going to be remedied, that they.
It is. It went 2 months without it, but you have to keep in mind also that every piece of information we give to you is available on our website.
That's just been a courtesy that we.
Yeah, and we've reinstituted it. It's absolute non-issue.
It's not required by law to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I did have some budget questions. I'll take those up with you separately.
Okay.
Is there any time? Thanks.
No comments, thank you.
On the town attorney, are there any people that you could approach?
I'm gonna talk to our former attorney and to see if he can recommend somebody. I mean, at this point, we're just it's gonna have to be a relationship because, I mean, we talked to Kendra Coward, but they're gonna be, $35,000 retainer plus a minimum, and it's just not what we can do. So I'll start poking around, but by all means, you guys, any lawyer more than happy to bring them forward to you so you can interview them and hire them. So. Next.
Right?
The email from Joni, I think, was time sensitive on the application for funding. Did you see that?
She said, am I the VTC, not VCT? it's
Virginia
VOF.
Public-
Yeah,
Outdoors.
Yeah,
Virginia Outdoors Foundation.
That's it, yeah. Wasn't that time sensitive?
I'll check the email and read it again and talk with her.
Okay, well, hopefully, I mean, would be able to act if she has to have a decision.
Oh, what, I know nothing
We
about
don't
it.
know. It's
Can I
already.
give you more information on that?
Yeah.
Is
I've got it open.
Is it encumbering us with anything?
Her email to me said, are you looking into other things that can help the community? Do you want to get coffee or whatever?
I'm talking about the one that she sent today about a grant application.
Oh, I
It would
haven't seen it.
enable them to put in the public restrooms available to people using the playground, the projected pavilion. It's a
didn't see it.
considerable size grant.
Yeah, I did that one today. I didn't see it.
12:39 PM to Cindy, Joy, Sarah, Ray, CC to Matt and Fletcher, also to Thelma and Mavis.
I'll look at it.
That's in our
Town
account.
email. Application deadline is August 22nd.
Is she asking us for
I think
Would
it's
have to
more-
support the grant application, I think.
financially or
Is
just?
is there a matching or something to it?
Okay.
I don't think so, but I
One of our
Did
questions
it come
was,
from you, Sam?
came from Joni.
it's right before that. Came from Joni today at 12:39.
And then there's a reply from Cindy. Just to amplify something.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Cindy's reply was at 12:46.
Yeah, I happened to be over there for a meeting and she mentioned it to me after the meeting.
So what is it?
As a grant
Just
To install public bathrooms at HOS to improve our public space for the visitors' access and comfort, plus the increased usage of this community area for recreation events, outdoor classes, etc.
Okay, sounds like a good idea. What's the?
So I think that Sarah, she's just asking if
I
we
think
know
it,
that the town's not already
Yeah.
submitting a grant that would conflict. Are we?
money has to go to the town.
I have to read it, I don't know.
That's
Are you
part of it.
submitting a
The county
grant to
ain't done
BLM?
it properly. She wants clarification on that.
Well, it sounds like that's.
Administrative thing.
Thing, yeah. Well, no, if we're not, yeah, to say, you just have to check off, you have to read it. Yeah, I don't think we need to vote on that. It sounds like a no win-win for
Okay, we
everybody.
don't have to vote on it.
Yeah, okay, we're going to closed session. Somebody will read that closed session.
So this is adjourned.